She was falling, not metaphorically, literally crashing toward marble floor, vision tunneling, the glittering ballroom spinning into darkness. Lena Virelli's last thought before her knees buckled wasn't about the tray of champagne exploding around her. It was that she'd finally become what everyone always said she was. Nothing. Just another broke art student who couldn't even stay upright long enough to serve the people who'd never see her anyway. Except someone caught her. Strong hands, expensive cologne cutting through her hunger-dizzy haze, a voice that didn't belong in her world. "I've got you." And when she looked up into Dominic Rausch's face, she knew everything was about to change. Want to see how a single moment can rewrite everything? Stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. Now let's begin. The thing about hunger is it doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It creeps. Starts as a hollow feeling you ignore because you're busy, because rent's due, because the canvas isn't going to paint itself. Then it's a tremor in your fingers while you're serving overpriced hors d'oeuvres to people who've never missed a meal in their lives. Then it's the floor rushing up to meet you and the sickening knowledge that you're about to make a scene in a room where you're supposed to be invisible. Lena had been invisible for 23 years. She'd gotten good at it. The Plaza Ballroom was a cathedral of wealth that night. All vaulted ceilings and crystal chandeliers throwing fractured light across designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. The annual Metropolitan Arts Foundation Gala. Lena knew the irony wasn't lost on anyone. Artists serving other artists, except some of them got to wear Prada, while others wore polyester uniforms that itched at the collar. She'd been on her feet for 6 hours. The catering agency had called her at the last minute. Someone canceled. They needed bodies, cash under the table. Lena needed cash more than she needed pride, so she'd shown up. Smiled, carried trays, pretended the smell of truffle risotto didn't make her stomach twist with want. More champagne here. The woman didn't look at her. Diamond earrings catching light, manicured hand making a vague gesture. Lena stepped forward, tray balanced, and felt the world tilt. Just slightly. Just enough. Her vision grayed at the edges. The ballroom sounds, laughter, string quartet, the clink of glasses, went distant and cottony. She knew this feeling, knew she had maybe 10 seconds before her body made the decision her mind couldn't. Not here. Not now. Jesus Christ, not... The tray slipped. Crystal exploded across marble, and Lena went down. Except she didn't hit the floor. Arms caught her mid-fall, strong, sure, expensive suit fabric against her cheek. The world stabilized enough for her to register a heartbeat that wasn't hers, cologne that probably cost more than her rent, and a voice that cut through the chaos. "I've got you." Not panicked, not even surprised, just certain. Lena's vision cleared in patches. First thing she saw, his hands. Not soft. Scarred knuckles, a small burn mark near the thumb. Working hands in a $10,000 suit. Then his face, all sharp angles and controlled intensity, dark hair touched with gray at the temples, eyes that were actually looking at her instead of through her. Dominic Rausch. She knew because everyone in New York knew. Real estate titan, the man who'd bought half of Tribeca and turned it into luxury condos that artists like her would never afford. The man critics called ruthless. The man society pages called eligible. The man currently holding her upright while champagne pooled around her feet and every eye in the ballroom turned their way. "Can you stand?" His voice was low, just for her. Lena's throat was too dry. She managed a nod. He didn't let go immediately. Steadied her. Studied her face with an intensity that made her want to look away, except she couldn't, because something in his expression wasn't pity. It was recognition? That couldn't be right. Men like Dominic Rausch didn't recognize women like Lena Virelli. "Sir, I'm so sorry." The catering manager materialized, face red, already reaching for Lena's arm. "She'll be removed immediately." "She'll sit down." Dominic's tone didn't change. Still calm, but the manager's hand stopped mid-reach. "There's a chair. Get her water." "Mr. Rausch, I assure you." "Now." The manager vanished. Lena found herself guided to a chair near the service hallway, out of the main flow but still visible to anyone paying attention, which was everyone. Heat crawled up her neck. "I'm fine," she said. First words. They came out rough. "Really? I just..." When did you last eat? The question hit like a slap. Direct. No cushioning. Lena's jaw tightened. That's not yesterday? Day before? He was crouched now, eye level with her, and his gaze was doing something she couldn't name, cataloging, reading. You're shaking. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Water appeared. Dominic took it from the hovering waiter without looking, handed it to Lena. She wanted to refuse on principle. She didn't need charity from billionaires who built empires on pushing people like her out of their neighborhoods. But her hands were shaking too hard, and the water was there, and God, she was so thirsty. She drank. Hated herself for it. Drank more. Dominic watched. Not like he was waiting for thanks. More like he was solving a puzzle. You're not a regular server. Not a question. Lena lowered the glass. What gave it away? The collapsing? A flicker of something crossed his face. Might have been amusement. The paint under your fingernails. She looked down. Cadmium red. Cerulean blue. Ground so deep into the beds and cuticles that no amount of scrubbing got it out. Evidence. Crime scene of her real life bleeding into this one. I'm an artist, she said. Then, because fuck it. Because she was still dizzy and he was still looking at her like she mattered. Was. I don't know. Does it count if no one sees the work? Does it count if you made it? The question landed strange. Too simple. Too complicated. Before Lena could answer, the manager was back, bristling with efficiency and barely concealed rage. Miss Virelli, you're clearly unwell. We'll arrange transport. I need the money. The words came out flat. True. Lena met the woman's eyes. I finish the shift or I don't get paid. You're in no condition. Then I'll sit here until I am. Standoff. The manager's expression cycled through annoyance, calculation, dismissal, landed on done. You're terminated, collect your things, and leave. The floor dropped out again, different kind of falling. Wait! Lena started to stand, but Dominic's hand on her shoulder kept her down, gentle, immovable. He looked at the manager. She stays. Mr. Rausch, with respect, she stays. I'll cover her wage for the evening. He pulled out his wallet, thin, black, probably Italian leather, and extracted bills without counting. Handed them over. That should be sufficient. The manager stared at the money. 500s. Lena's stomach lurched. That's unnecessary, the woman managed. Consider it a donation to improved working conditions. Dominic's smile didn't reach his eyes. I assume you'll ensure your staff gets meal breaks going forward? It wasn't a question either. The manager left. Fast. Lena sat very still. The water glass was slippery in her grip. Around them, the gala had resumed its rhythm, the brief entertainment of a server's collapse already forgotten, conversations flowing back into comfortable channels. You didn't have to do that, she said. I know. I know that too. Dominic stood, adjusted his cuffs. The motion was casual, but Lena caught the tension in his shoulders, like he was deliberately keeping himself in check. What's your name? Lena? Lena. He tested it. The paint. What do you work in? Her mouth opened. Closed. This wasn't how conversations went. Rich men didn't ask broke women about their art. They asked for refills, for directions to the bathroom, for nothing at all, because service workers were furniture. Mixed media, she heard herself say. Mostly oil and collage. Some found objects. Subject matter? Why do you care? Wrong thing to say. Too sharp. But Dominic's expression didn't close. If anything, it opened slightly. Because I want to know. Simple. Devastating. Lena swallowed. People. Spaces between people. The way we're all crowded together in this city, but completely alone. She stopped. Heat rising again. Different source. That sounds pretentious. It sounds honest. Same thing, usually. That got her the real smile. Small. There and gone. But real. Do you show anywhere that? He asked. I can barely afford canvas. That's not what I asked. Lena's fingers tightened on the glass. No, I don't show anywhere. I work 3 jobs and paint when I'm not unconscious. My portfolio's in a portfolio site that 12 people have visited, half of them bots. I'm nobody. Lena. He said her name like he was correcting her. Let me see your work. The room tilted again, different axis. What? Your portfolio. Give me the link. Give me... This was insane. This was how horror stories started. Naive girls, powerful men, promises that turned to ash. Lena had been in New York long enough to know better, had been broke long enough to spot a transaction coming. But something in his face wasn't that. Wasn't transaction. Was just want? Curiosity? She couldn't read it, and that scared her more than if she could. Why? She needed to hear him say it. Dominic was quiet for a moment. Around them, the gala swirled, a galaxy of wealth and access that neither of them was quite part of right now, here in this bubble of spilled champagne and strange honesty. Because I buy art, he finally said, and I haven't seen anything that made me feel something in 5 years. His eyes held hers. And you just told me about your work like it might kill you to stop making it. That's the only thing worth buying. Lena's heart was doing something complicated in her chest. She pulled out her phone, cracked screen, 3 apps running to save battery, and navigated to her site with shaking fingers, handed it over. Watched Dominic's face as he scrolled. His expression didn't change. No polite interest, no dismissive nod. He just looked, really looked, zoomed in on details, spent 30 seconds on one piece, a minute on another. The silence stretched until Lena wanted to grab the phone back and run. Then he stopped on one image, a painting she'd done last winter, oil and newspaper and rust scraped from a fire escape. A woman's face fragmented across headlines about housing costs, her eyes just visible through the text, mouth open like she was screaming or breathing or both. This one, Dominic said. Do you still have it? It's in my studio. Studio was generous, bedroom corner. I want to buy it. The words didn't process. What? I want to buy it. Name your price. Lena laughed, couldn't help it, sharp, slightly hysterical. I've never sold anything. I don't have a price. Then I'll name one. He looked at her. 10,000. The room disappeared. That's... She couldn't finish sentences. $10,000 was 3 months' rent. Was her student loan's breathing room? Was actual canvas instead of rejected board from the art supply dumpster. You haven't even seen it in person. I've seen enough. He pulled out his phone. Give me your payment information. I'll wire it tonight. Stop. Lena stood. Too fast? Dominic's hand shot out to steady her again, and she let him because the alternative was falling, and she'd done enough of that. Why are you doing this? I told you. Bullshit. The word came out hard. Nobody pays $10,000 for a painting from a website. Not without authentication, provenance, gallery representation. Not without... She stopped, understanding crystallizing. What do you want? Dominic's jaw tightened. To buy your art. Just that? Just that. They stared at each other. Lena trying to find the lie, the angle, the hook, finding nothing but that same intensity, that same strange recognition. If I say yes, she said slowly, and you wire money, and then you show up at my apartment expecting, I won't. You don't know where I live. You'll tell me when you're ready to deliver the painting. He paused. Or I can arrange pickup, whatever makes you comfortable. Lena wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. She wanted to believe that someone had looked at her work and seen value. That the universe was handing her a break instead of another beating. That this man with his scarred hands and expensive suit was exactly what he appeared to be, someone who wanted her art. Just her art. One painting, she said. 10,000. You don't get my number, my address, anything else. Agreed. And if you're lying, if this is some kind of... I'm not. Dominic's voice was steady. I don't lie about art, or money, or intentions. Lena pulled out her phone again, pulled up her banking app, $47.23 current balance, and showed him the account number. Watched him type it in. Watched him hit send. Her phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Deposit, $10,000. She stared at the screen. The numbers didn't change, didn't vanish, just sat there, real and impossible. Holy shit, she whispered. I'll need the painting within the week, Dominic said. Like this was normal. Like he did this every day. Maybe he did. My assistant will contact you to arrange... I'll bring it. The words came out before Lena could stop them. I'll bring it myself. Something shifted in his expression. You don't have to. I want to see where it's going. She met his eyes. I want to see if you actually hang it or if it ends up in storage with the rest of your portfolio. I don't buy art for storage. Prove it. The challenge hung between them. Dominic studied her, really studied her, like she was a painting too. Something to be understood in layers. Friday, he said. My office. 6 p.m. He produced a business card from nowhere. Heavy stock, minimalist design. Just a name and address. As for me at the desk. Lena took the card. Their fingers brushed. She felt it down to her knees. Friday, she agreed. Dominic nodded once, started to turn, stopped. Lena. Yeah? Eat something. Tonight. Not a command. A request. Please. Then he was gone, absorbed back into the galaxy of the gala, and Lena was alone with a phone full of money and a head full of questions and a feeling in her chest that might have been hope or might have been terror. Probably both. She lasted another 2 hours, served champagne on autopilot, her mind spinning through scenarios. This was a setup. This was real. This was too good. This was finally her break. This was how women disappeared. This was how careers started. By the time the gala ended and Lena collected her actual wages, $200 in an envelope, laughably small now, her hands had steadied. She took the subway home to Bushwick, packed into the F train with the late-night crowd, and let the reality settle. $10,000. Her studio apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up that smelled like her downstairs neighbor's cooking and had heat that worked maybe 60% of the time. Lena let herself in, locked the 3 deadbolts, and went straight to the corner she'd converted into workspace. The painting Dominic wanted was there, leaning against the wall, unframed, a little warped from humidity. She'd titled it Breathing Room in her head, though she'd never written it down. Never thought it would matter. Now someone wanted it. Now someone had paid for it. Lena sat on her bed, mattress on the floor, sheets from Target 3 years ago, and stared at the painting. Tried to see what he saw. A woman fragmented by circumstances, visible only in pieces, screaming or breathing. Was that good? Was that worth 10,000? Was any of this real? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Caroline Reeves, Mr. Rausch's assistant, confirming Friday 6 p.m. for delivery at 432 Park Avenue, 58th floor. Please bring ID for building security. Let me know if you need any assistance with transportation. Lena read it 3 times. 432 Park Avenue. One of those insane luxury towers that looked like a middle finger to the skyline. Of course, Dominic Rausch had an office there. She typed back, I'll be there. Then she opened her banking app again. The money was still there. Still real. Lena sat very still in her terrible apartment with her broken heater and her painting and her phone, and let herself feel it, the terrifying, exhilarating vertigo of everything changing. The next 3 days were a fever dream. Lena went to her morning shift at the coffee shop and quit. The manager, a perpetually exhausted woman named Sonia, who'd always been decent to her, didn't even look surprised. You win the lottery? Sonia asked, wiping down the espresso machine. Something like that. Good. You were too smart for this place anyway. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, Lena felt unmoored. She'd worked at that coffee shop for 2 years. Knew the regulars' orders, the broken tile by the bathroom, the way the milk frother whined before it died. It was horrible and familiar, and now it was gone. She kept her evening shifts at the campus library. Partly because the money was still real, partly because she wasn't ready to burn all her bridges. The art world was full of stories about one-hit wonders, flashes in the pan, people who thought they'd made it and ended up back at square one. Lena had been broke too long to trust windfall, but she let herself buy things. New brushes. Real ones, not the synthetic garbage from the dollar store. Canvas that didn't buckle. Paint in colors she'd been mixing approximations of for months. She walked into the art supply store on Canal Street and didn't check prices, and the feeling was so foreign she almost walked back out. The clerk, a guy with paint-stained hands and gauges in his ears, rang her up and said, You selling finally? Yeah, Lena said. Yeah, I am. Congrats. He handed her the bags. Meant it. She carried her supplies home like they might dissolve, set them up in her corner, stared at blank canvas and felt the weight of it. Someone had paid real money for her work. Someone would pay again, maybe, if she was good enough. If this wasn't a fluke, if Dominic Rausch wasn't playing some game she couldn't see. Thursday night, she couldn't sleep. Lay on her mattress and watched headlights slide across the ceiling and thought about tomorrow. What she'd wear. What she'd say. Whether he'd actually be there, or if this was an elaborate prank by someone with too much money and too much time. At 3 a.m., she gave up and painted. Started something new. Not for Dominic, for herself. A man's face in profile, half-shadowed, features sharp enough to cut. Eyes that saw too much. Hands that didn't match the suit. She worked until dawn, until her wrists ached, until the painting looked back at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. She didn't let herself think about why she was painting him. What? Friday arrived cold and bright. Lena showered in her terrible bathroom with the water that ran lukewarm at best, dressed in her only pair of jeans without paint stains, layered a thrift store sweater over a tank top. Looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone trying too hard. Changed into a black dress she'd bought for gallery openings she'd never been invited to. Wore her beat-up leather jacket over it, boots that were more practical than fashionable. Pulled her dark hair back, gave up, let it down. Wore lipstick. Wiped it off. Put it back on. Jesus, Lena, she told her reflection. It's a delivery. Except it wasn't. It was a test, a audition, a chance to see if the last 3 days had been real or fever dream. She wrapped breathing room in brown paper and bubble wrap, careful with the corners. Called a car she couldn't quite afford yet. Watched Bushwick slide past the windows as they drove toward Midtown, her city transforming from scrappy to sleek in the space of 20 blocks. 432 Park Avenue rose like a monument to excess, all glass and steel and vertical lines that disappeared into sky. Lena had walked past it before, neck craned, wondering what it felt like to be so far above everything. Now she was about to find out. The lobby was all marble and security. Lena approached the desk with her painting and her ID and her hammering heart. Lena Virelli, she said, for Dominic Rausch. The guard checked his computer, nodded. 58th floor. Elevator's on your right. That easy, like she belonged. The elevator was mirror-walled and disorienting. Lena watched her reflection multiply. 100 nervous women holding 100 wrapped paintings and tried to breathe normally. The numbers climbed. Her ears popped. 58th floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that was more art gallery than office. White walls, track lighting, actual paintings she recognized from auction catalogs. A woman behind a glass desk looked up and smiled. Ms. Virelli, Mr. Rausch is expecting you. Caroline Reeves, presumably. Perfectly professional. Right this way. Lena followed her down a hallway lined with more art, stopped in front of a door that was closed but not locked. Caroline knocked once. Come in. Dominic's voice. Steady. Caroline opened the door and stepped aside. Lena walked through. The office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Central Park, a green gash through the urban grid. Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her annual income. And art everywhere, on the walls, on stands, leaning in corners. Real art, important art. Dominic stood by the window, same sharp suit, different color. He turned when she entered and his expression did something she couldn't read. Lena. Hi. God, she sounded like an idiot. I brought the painting. I see that. He crossed the room, stopped a respectful distance away. May I? She handed it over. Watched him unwrap it with careful hands, the bubble wrap and paper falling away until breathing room was exposed to the light. Dominic went very still. Lena's throat was dry. If it's not what you... It's better. He angled it toward the window. Light caught the texture of the paint, the newspaper fragments, the woman's eyes staring out through headlines. Christ, Lena, it's better than the photograph. Something in her chest unclenched. You actually like it, she said, not quite a question. I told you I did. People say things. I don't. Dominic looked at her over the painting. Where do you want it? What? You said you wanted to see where it goes, so tell me. He gestured at the walls. Where should I hang it? Lena looked around. The office was full of important pieces, a Basquiat sketch, what might have been a de Kooning, abstracts she didn't recognize but could feel the weight of. Her painting was raw and unfinished by comparison. Rough edges and recycled materials and desperation made visible. It doesn't belong here, she said. Why not? Because, she gestured helplessly. Look at this place. Look at those paintings. You're not what? Dominic set breathing room down carefully, turned to face her fully. Not good enough? Not trained enough? Not starving romantically enough in a Paris garret? I'm plenty starving, Lena shot back, just not romantically. Then you're exactly where you need to be. He moved closer. Not crowding, just present. Do you know why I bought this? Because you felt sorry for me. Try again. Lena's hands clenched. Because you want something. I do. He didn't deny it. I want more paintings. I want to see what else you make. I want to watch someone who actually gives a shit about the work instead of the market value. She didn't have words. That's not how this works. How what works? This, art dealing, patronage, whatever this is. Lena waved at the space between them. You don't just hand money to random servers and ask for more paintings. Why not? Because there are systems, galleries, representation, portfolios and references and gatekeepers, Dominic finished. People who decide who gets seen and who doesn't based on credentials and connections and how well you play the game. He paused. You're good at playing games, Lena? Obviously not. Good. Neither am I. They stood there, city sprawling below them, art surrounding them, the painting between them like a challenge. I don't understand what you want from me, Lena said quietly. Dominic was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. I want to commission you. 6 paintings, 50,000. The number hit like a fist. That's insane. That's market rate for emerging artists with promise. I'm not emerging. I'm nobody. You're someone who made that. He nodded at breathing room. And I want 5 more pieces that make me feel the same way. Lena's mind spun. $50,000. Enough to quit all her jobs. Enough to paint full-time for months. Enough to actually call herself an artist without the bitter irony. Enough to be completely dependent on one man's whim. What if you don't like what I make? She asked. Then I'll tell you. What if I can't deliver? Then we'll figure it out. What if this is all some weird power play I don't understand yet? Dominic's expression flickered. Then you walk away. Anytime. Keep whatever money I've given you. No strings. There are always strings. Not with me. He met her eyes. I don't operate that way. Lena wanted to believe him. That was the terrifying part. She barely knew this man. One conversation at a gala, one transaction, one afternoon in his tower office. And she wanted to trust that he meant what he said. That was how people got hurt, how they got used, how they woke up one day and realized they'd sold something they couldn't get back. But it was also how things changed, how chances got taken, how artists who worked 3 jobs became artists who just worked. I need to think about it, she said. Dominic nodded. Take as long as you need. I should... Lena gestured vaguely at the door. I should go. Lena. He stopped her before she could turn. Have dinner with me. Her heart stopped. What? Dinner. Tonight. There's a place in the village, nothing fancy, just food and conversation. He paused. I want to know more about your work, your process, what drives you. That sounds like a date. It's a business dinner. Business dinners don't happen in the village at not fancy places. Dominic's mouth curved slightly. You're right. It's not a business dinner. It's me asking if you want to have dinner with someone who finds you interesting. Lena's breath caught. This isn't... I know. His voice was gentle. I'm not asking for anything except your time. And only if you want to give it. She should say no. Should establish boundaries. Keep this professional, not blur lines that were already hazier than they should be. But she heard herself say, Where? Toots. The restaurant was a hole-in-the-wall Italian place with checkered tablecloths and wine in tumblers. Nothing like Lena expected. Nothing like Dominic's office or his suits or the world he inhabited. They sat in a corner booth and ordered pasta and talked about art, about the city, about how Lena had ended up in New York, scholarship to Pratt, dropped out when the money ran out, stayed because leaving felt like admitting defeat. About how Dominic had built his empire, started in construction, worked his way up, made enemies and fortunes in equal measure. People think real estate is about buildings, he said, twirling spaghetti. It's about people, what they need, what they're afraid of, where they want to belong. And you give them that? Lena asked. I sell them that. Whether they find it, he shrugged. That's on them. Sounds cynical. Sounds realistic. Lena sipped her wine. Why art then? If you're all about transaction, why collect something so subjective? Dominic was quiet, considering. Because it's the only thing I can't control, can't predict, can't reduce to numbers and projections. He looked at her. Because sometimes I see a piece and it rewrites everything I thought I knew about what I wanted. The words landed heavy. Like my painting, Lena said. Like you. She should have expected it, should have seen it coming, but it still hit like revelation, like disaster. Dominic, I'm not expecting anything, he said quickly. I meant what I said, no strings, but I'm also not going to pretend I don't see you. You don't know me. Then let me. Lena set down her wine, looked at this man who'd caught her when she fell, who'd paid for her art, who was looking at her now like she was something rare instead of something broken. This is a terrible idea, she said. Probably. You could be anyone. Could want anything. I could. Dominic leaned forward. But I'm telling you exactly what I want. Your art, your time, your trust, if you're willing to give it. Nothing you're not offering. And if I say this is too much, too fast, then we slow down or stop. Your call. It was the your call that did it. The acknowledgement of her agency in a situation where she should have had none. Starving artist, wealthy patron, power imbalance so obvious a child could see it. But he was handing her the power anyway, waiting for her decision. Lena took a breath. Tell me about the worst thing you've ever done. Dominic blinked. What? You want me to trust you, so tell me the worst thing. The thing that keeps you up at night. The thing you'd take back if you could. He studied her, then nodded slowly. I bought a building in the Lower East Side. Rent-controlled units. Families who'd been there for generations. His voice was even, factual. I evicted them. Renovated. Sold the condos for triple what the building was worth. Lena's stomach tightened. How many families? 42. Jesus. I told myself it was business. Market forces. Evolution of the city. Dominic's jaw worked. I was 29 and hungry and convinced I was building something important. And now? Now I know I was building my net worth on other people's displacement. He met her eyes. I can't take it back. Can't undo it. I've tried. Bought buildings and kept them affordable, funded housing initiatives. But those 42 families are still gone, and I'm still the person who made that choice. Lena sat with it. The honesty. The ugliness. The fact that he wasn't trying to justify or minimize. Why tell me? She asked. Because you asked. And because if we're doing this, whatever this is, you should know who I am. Not the reputation, not the image, the actual person who's made actual mistakes. Lena struggled for words. That's terrifyingly honest. I don't see the point in being anything else. Not with you. They looked at each other across checkered tablecloth and cooling pasta. Lena felt something shift. Some wall she'd been holding crumbling just slightly. 6 paintings, she said, 50,000. I work on my timeline, my terms. You don't get input on subject matter or style. And if I decide to walk away, you keep the money and we're done. Clean. Dominic extended his hand across the table. Deal? Lena looked at his hand, scarred knuckles, working hands, hands that had built and destroyed and were offering her something that felt like a lifeline and a trap simultaneously. She took it. Deal. His grip was warm, firm. He held on just a second longer than necessary, thumb brushing across her knuckles. And Lena felt it everywhere. When they left the restaurant, snow had started falling. soft flakes catching in streetlights, melting on pavement. Dominic walked her to the subway station, hands in his pockets, breath frosting the air. "Thank you," Lena said at the top of the stairs. "For dinner, for everything. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Pretty sure you're the one taking the chance." "No." Dominic's smile was small, real. "I know exactly what I'm getting. You're the one gambling on whether I'm worth trusting." He wasn't wrong. Lena started down the stairs, stopped, turned back. "Dominic?" "Yeah?" "Hang the painting where you'll see it every day. Not in storage, not in some room you never use. Somewhere it'll bother you a little." His expression shifted, understanding. "Why?" "Because art should bother you, should make you feel something uncomfortable. Otherwise, it's just decoration." She didn't wait for his response. Disappeared into the subway, into the rush of people and movement and the familiar rattle of the train. Pulled out her phone as she found a seat. The painting she'd started last night, his face, half-shadowed, was still on her mind. She opened her notes app and typed, "Man who sees too much. Oil and mixed media. 48 by 60. Then she opened her banking app, watched the numbers that still didn't feel real, and she let herself imagine. 6 paintings. Her paintings. Hanging in places that mattered. Being seen. For the first time in years, Lena Virelli let herself hope. The train rattled toward Brooklyn. Snow fell on Manhattan. And somewhere in a tower overlooking the city, Dominic Rausch stood in front of a painting of a woman who couldn't breathe and felt something crack open in his chest. They were both in trouble. Neither of them knew how much yet. The studio Dominic arranged wasn't a studio. It was a loft in Tribeca with windows that ate the southern light whole, exposed brick that had probably seen 100 years of the city's evolution, and enough square footage that Lena stood in the doorway and forgot how to breathe. "This is a mistake," she said. Caroline Reeves, Dominic's assistant, always perfectly composed, handed her a key. "Mr. Rausch was quite specific. You need proper working space." "I have working space." "He saw your apartment." Lena's jaw tightened. "He what?" "The background of your portfolio photos. He noticed the radiator, the water damage on the ceiling." Caroline's expression was professionally neutral. "He felt you deserved better." "He doesn't get to decide what I deserve." "No, but he gets to offer." Caroline gestured into the loft. "The lease is paid through the year. Use it or don't. Your choice." Then she left, heels clicking across hardwood, and Lena was alone with 2,000 square feet of empty space and the nauseating vertigo of charity that didn't feel like charity. She pulled out her phone. Dominic answered on the second ring. "You saw my apartment?" No greeting, just accusation. A pause. "Yes." "When?" "The portfolio photos. You were careful to crop out most of the room, but not careful enough." Lena's hand clenched around the phone. "So you decided to what? Rescue me?" "I decided to provide working space for the artist I commissioned. That's not rescue. That's logistics." "Bullshit. You're trying to To what, Lena?" His voice was still calm, infuriatingly calm. "Control you? Buy you? I'm trying to make sure you have the space and resources to do the work I'm paying you for. That's called investment. It's called overstepping. Then don't use it." No anger, just fact. "Lock the door and walk away. But don't pretend I'm doing something to you when I'm offering something for you." The distinction landed like a punch. Lena stood in the doorway, phone pressed to her ear, looking at light that was perfect for painting and hating that she wanted it. Hating that he was right. Hating that her apartment with its broken heater and water-damaged ceiling was killing her work slowly, and she'd been too proud or too scared to admit it. "I can't afford this," she said quietly. "You're not paying for it." "That's the problem." Dominic was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted, gentler. "Lena, I have more money than I know what to do with. You have talent that's being suffocated by circumstance. Let me match those things up. That's all this is. It's never just that. With me it is." A pause. "But if it makes you uncomfortable, I'll cancel the lease. No judgment, no consequences." Lena closed her eyes. Felt the light on her face through the massive windows. Imagine painting here. Real canvases on real easels, space to step back and see the work, room to make a mess without knocking into furniture. I hate you a little bit right now, she said. I can live with that. The lease is just for work. I'm not moving in. Didn't ask you to. And you don't get a key. Already gave you the only one. Lena opened her eyes, looked at the empty loft, waiting. Okay. I'll use it. For the paintings. Nothing else. She could hear the smile in his voice. That's all I wanted? After they hung up, Lena walked through the space slowly. High ceilings, clean walls. A bathroom that actually had hot water. She checked. The heating worked. The floors didn't creak. It smelled like fresh paint and possibility instead of mildew and someone else's cooking. She sat down in the middle of the empty room and put her head in her hands and cried. Not sad crying, not happy crying. Just the overwhelming release of something breaking inside her that had been holding too tight for too long. The part that had convinced her suffering was required for art. That struggle was the price of authenticity. That accepting help meant losing herself. Maybe it didn't have to be that way. Maybe she could make good work and also have heat. Revolutionary fucking concept. The first painting happened fast. Lena moved her supplies in over a weekend. Everything she owned fit in a borrowed van, and started working Monday morning. No plan, no sketch. Just canvas and the feeling that had been building in her chest since the gala. A figure emerging from rubble. Newspaper fragments forming wings, or maybe weights. Couldn't tell if they were lifting or crushing. Face obscured by headlines about development, progress, displacement. Hands reaching up or pushing down, again ambiguous. She worked for 12 hours straight, forgot to eat, forgot to check her phone, forgot everything except the paint and the image and the thing she was trying to say about transformation and cost. When she finally stepped back, vision blurry, hands cramping, the painting stared back at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Good. Art should bother you. She titled it, The Upgrade, and knew Dominic would understand immediately. Knew he'd see himself in it. The man who built empires on other people's displacement. Knew it might piss him off. Painted it anyway. They fell into a rhythm over the next month. Lena would work. Dominic would text. Not every day. Not intrusively. But enough. Checking in. Asking how the work was going. Sometimes sending photos of breathing room now hanging in his office where he could see it from his desk. Still bothering me, he texted once. In the best way. Lena allowed herself to smile at that. They had dinner twice more. Once at a Thai place in Alphabet City, where they argued about whether art had responsibility to make political statements. Lena said yes. Dominic said art's only responsibility was to itself. They both left angry and energized. The second time was at his apartment, a penthouse she tried very hard not to gape at, where he cooked. Actual cooking, not catering. Pasta from scratch, sauce that had simmered for hours, his sleeves rolled up and flour on his hands. You cook? Lena said, watching him work. Surprised? Yeah. Why? Because rich men only eat at Michelin-starred restaurants? Something like that. Dominic smiled, focused on the pasta dough. My mother was a line cook. Taught me before she died. It's the only thing I do that has nothing to do with money or power or winning. Lena filed that away. The dead mother. The line cook passed. The man who built skyscrapers but still made sauce the slow way. They ate on his balcony, 58th floor, the city sprawling below them like a living organism, and talked about things that had nothing to do with art or business. Childhoods, scars, the particular loneliness of New York. Do you ever feel like you're living next to 8 million people and still completely alone? Lena asked. Dominic looked at her over his wine glass. Every day of my life. Until recently. The weight of that hung between them. Lena should have left then. Should have recognized the moment for what it was. Intimacy creeping in, boundaries blurring, danger approaching. Instead, she stayed. Helped him wash dishes, let him show her his art collection, pieces she'd only seen in textbooks, stories he'd collected about each acquisition. Stood close enough to feel the heat of him while he explained why he'd bought a particular Rothko. It reminded me of standing at my mother's grave, he said quietly. All that color and darkness at the same time. Feeling everything and nothing. Lena's throat tightened. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you understand what that feels like. She told him during dinner, her own mother, cancer, 3 years ago. The reason she'd dropped out of Pratt. The reason she'd stayed in New York even when it was killing her. She wanted me to be an artist, Lena said. Like, actually wanted it. Believed in it even when I didn't. She'd be proud of you now. She'd be worried I'm fucking it up. Dominic turned to face her fully. They were very close now, close enough that Lena could see the flecks of gray in his dark eyes, the small scar above his eyebrow, the way he was looking at her like he was memorizing details. You're not fucking it up, he said. You don't know that. I know you're making extraordinary work. I know you're taking a risk on yourself. I know you're brave enough to accept help without letting it define you. His hand came up, hesitated, fell. That's not fucking up. That's winning. Lena's heart was doing complicated things. Dominic, I should call you a car. Yeah, you should. Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, taut, dangerous. Lena could feel the pull of it, the want, the possibility, the terrible idea of closing the distance between them and seeing what happened. But she thought about power imbalances and patron relationships gone wrong and the 42 families he'd displaced and all the ways this could end badly. So she stepped back. Good night, Dominic. Something flickered across his face. Disappointment? Relief? Both? Good night, Lena. The car ride home was long and cold, and Lena spent it trying not to think about the way he'd almost touched her face, trying not to imagine what would have happened if she'd stayed. Down. The second painting was angrier. A boardroom made of glass and steel, figures in suits, faceless except for their hands, all gesturing, grabbing, claiming. At the center, a small figure in color while everything else was grayscale, looking up, drowning in progress. She called it the meeting and knew it was about Dominic, but also about everyone like him. Everyone who made decisions that shattered lives from the comfortable distance of the 58th floor. When she sent him the photo, his response was immediate. When can I see it in person? It's not ready. When it is. 3 days later, he showed up at the loft unannounced. Lena was working, paint-stained tank top, hair pulled back, probably hadn't showered in 2 days, and looked up to find him in the doorway. You gave me the only key, he said. The building has security. I own the building. Of course he did. Lena set down her brush. You can't just show up. You're right. I'm sorry. But he was already looking past her at the paintings. Both finished pieces and the one in progress. Something about transformation she hadn't figured out yet. His expression shifted, went very still. Christ. What? He moved closer to the meeting, studied it with that same intensity he'd given breathing room. The faceless figures, the drowning center, the indictment made visible. You're angry, he said. I'm always angry. At me specifically, or the system generally? Does it matter? Dominic looked at her, really looked. Yes. Lena's hands clenched. You want me to make you comfortable? Paint pretty things that don't ask questions? I want you to tell me the truth. The truth is you're part of a machine that eats people like me and shits out condos. The words came out hard. Hot. The truth is you sleep fine at night in your penthouse, while the families you displaced are probably in shelters or doubled up in apartments too small, or just gone from the city entirely. The truth is I'm taking your money and using your space, and I feel like a hypocrite every single day. Silence. Heavy. Dominic's jaw worked. Good. What? Good. You should feel that. I should feel that. He stepped closer. Do you think I don't know what I am? What I've done? I told you about those families because I need someone who won't let me forget. Who won't let me pretend my money washes away the blood. That's not my job. No, it's your art's job, and you're doing it. He gestured at the painting. This is what I'm paying for. Not pretty decoration, not comfortable lies, truth that makes me want to punch through walls. Lena stared at him. You're insane. Probably. His smile was sharp. But I'm not lying. Every piece you make that indicts me, that shows me exactly what I am, that's worth more than any polite gallery piece designed to match someone's couch. So, I'm your punishment? You're my conscience, if you're willing. The words landed strange, too intimate, too true. I don't want to be your anything, Lena said. Dominic's expression shifted. I know. Then why? Because I see you anyway, have from the beginning, and I'm selfish enough to want you to keep seeing me even when it's ugly. They stood there in the loft, afternoon light cutting through the windows, paintings surrounding them like witnesses. Lena felt something cracking again, different fault line this time. "I'm finishing the 6 paintings," she said. "Then we're done. No more commissions, no more dinners, clean break." Dominic nodded slowly. "If that's what you want, it's what needs to happen." "Okay." He turned to leave, stopped at the door, didn't look back. "For what it's worth, Lena, you're the best thing that's happened to me in 5 years, and I'm sorry that's complicated." Then he was gone. Lena stood very still, stared at the meeting with its faceless figures and drowning center, felt her own heart drowning a little. "Fuck," she whispered. The complications multiplied. 3 weeks later, Lena got a call from an unknown number. Gallery owner, interested in her work, had heard about her through a mutual friend. "Who?" Lena asked. "I'm not at liberty to say, but they spoke very highly of your pieces. I'd love to see your portfolio." Lena's stomach dropped. "Did Dominic Rausch send you?" A pause. "I really can't discuss." She hung up. Called Dominic immediately. He answered over traffic noise, probably in a car. "Did you call galleries about me?" No greeting. "Hello to you too." "Dominic, did you?" Silence. Then, "I mentioned you to a few people. Casually." "Casually?" "You're talented. People should know about you." "That's not your decision to make." Lena was pacing now, phone clenched. "You don't get to manage my career behind my back." "I'm not managing anything. I made introductions. What happens after that is entirely up to you. You don't see how that's fucked up? How that makes everything I do look like it's because of you?" His voice hardened. "So you'd rather stay invisible? Rather keep working 3 jobs and painting in corners because accepting help means you're not pure enough?" "I'd rather earn it." "You did earn it. By making work that matters." He was angry now too. Good. "But the art world doesn't work on merit alone, and you know it. It works on access and connections and who you know. I'm offering you access. Stop punishing yourself for taking it." "I'm not punishing myself. I'm trying to maintain integrity." "Integrity doesn't keep the lights on." "No, your money does. And that's the problem." The silence that followed was different, colder. "I see," Dominic said finally. "I'm the problem." Lena's throat tightened. "That's not what I—" "It's exactly what you meant. I'm the rich asshole who swooped in and ruined your authentic struggle." "You're the rich asshole who made me dependent on you." "I made you dependent? Or you're afraid of what it means that you're not alone anymore?" The words hit like a slap. "Fuck you," Lena said. "Right back at you." He hung up. Lena stood in the loft he was paying for, surrounded by paints she'd bought with his money, working on paintings he'd commissioned, and felt the full weight of the trap she'd walked into. He was right. She was terrified. Not of dependence, of wanting, of the way her chest tightened when he texted, the way she painted better knowing he'd see the work, the way she'd started thinking about him as Dominic instead of Mr. Rausch, as a person instead of a patron, as someone who mattered instead of someone who was just convenient. That was the real problem. She was falling for the man who held all the power, and there was no good ending to that story. Lena threw herself into the work. Finished the 3rd painting in a week, a brutal piece about consumption, about the city eating itself. Started the 4th immediately, barely slept, lived on coffee and rage and the desperate need to prove she could do this without him. Her phone stayed silent. No texts from Dominic. No calls. Just the deafening absence of someone who'd become part of her daily rhythm. She told herself it was better this way. Told herself she didn't miss the conversations, the arguments, the way he looked at her paintings like they were rewiring his understanding of the world. Told herself a lot of lies. 2 weeks after their fight, she got another call. Different gallery. Same story. Heard about her through a mutual connection. Wanted to see her work. This time, Lena said yes. The gallery was in Chelsea. Small but respected. The owner, a sharp-eyed woman named Rachel Morse, walked through Lena's portfolio on a tablet with increasing focus. "These are raw," she said. "Is that bad?" "It's honest. Better than bad." Rachel zoomed in on the meeting. "This one especially. Who's the patron?" "I can't say." "Can't or won't?" "Both." Rachel smiled. "Good. Keep that mystery." She set down the tablet. I want to include you in a group show. 3 pieces. 2 months from now. It's young, emerging artists. You'd fit perfectly. Lena's heart kicked. Really? Really? But I need to see the work in person. Can you bring them by? Yes, absolutely. They set a date, shook hands. Lena walked out of the gallery and made it half a block before she had to sit down on a bench because her legs were shaking. A gallery show. An actual, real gallery show. She pulled out her phone, stared at Dominic's name in her contacts. Wanted desperately to call him, to tell him, to hear him say he was proud of her. But that would mean admitting she needed him, needed his validation, needed something more than just his money. So she called her best friend instead. Maya, fellow Pratt dropout, currently working at a nonprofit, who screamed so loud Lena had to hold the phone away from her ear. This is huge. This is everything. It's a group show, 3 pieces. It's your first show, your foot in the door. Wait, did Dominic set this up too? Lena's stomach clenched. I don't know. You don't know? He said he mentioned me to people, but Rachel seemed genuine, seemed like she actually liked the work. Lena, Maya's voice was careful. You need to find out. How? Ask him. We're not speaking. Then make it awkward and ask anyway, because if he did set this up, if this is another thing he's controlling, you need to know before you walk into that gallery thinking you earned it. The words stung, mostly because they were true. Ush, Lena texted him that night. Simple, direct. Did you call Rachel Morse? The response came 10 minutes later. No. You're sure? I've never heard of her. What happened? Lena stared at the messages, felt something unknot in her chest. Group show. 2 months. 3 pieces. The phone rang immediately. She answered. Lena. His voice was careful. That's incredible. Yeah. Did you think I set it up? I had to ask. I understand. A pause. For what it's worth, I meant what I said. I made introductions. But I didn't call every gallery in New York. Someone saw your work and wanted it on merit. Lena closed her eyes. Okay. Okay. Silence, the awkward kind. I'm sorry, they said simultaneously. Lena laughed, rough. You first. I overstepped. With the galleries, with the loft, with... He stopped. With a lot of things. I'm used to solving problems with money, and I treated your career like a problem instead of a path you're building yourself. I'm sorry I called you a rich asshole. I am a rich asshole. Yeah, but you're... She struggled for words. You're more than that. And I've been so scared of the power dynamic that I forgot you're also just a person. A complicated, frustrating person who makes really good pasta and has terrible taste in Rothkos. I have excellent taste in Rothkos. You really don't. He laughed, real, warm. I missed you. The words hung there, too honest, too much. Dominic, I know this is complicated. I know I'm your patron, and there are lines we shouldn't cross. But I'm not going to pretend I don't care about you. I'm too old and too tired to play games. Lena's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to keep seeing you, not as patron and artist, as 2 people who give a shit about each other. If that's possible without ruining everything. I don't know if it is. Then let's find out. She should say no, should establish boundaries, should protect herself from the inevitable complications. But she heard herself say, dinner, tomorrow. Somewhere we can talk about what this actually is. Okay? And Dominic? I missed you too. They met at a wine bar in the West Village. Low lighting, quiet corners, the kind of place where you could have difficult conversations without being overheard. Dominic was already there when Lena arrived, 2 glasses poured, expression nervous in a way she'd never seen. Hi, she said, sliding into the booth. Hi. They looked at each other, all the things unsaid crowding the space between them. This is terrifying, Lena said finally. Absolutely. We should establish rules. Probably. No more surprise leases or gallery calls. Agreed. I finished the commission on my terms, 6 paintings, no extensions, no changes. Done. And after that, Lena stopped, swallowed. After that, we figure out what this is without the patron thing hanging over us. Dominic nodded slowly. What if I want more paintings after the 6th? Then we negotiate, like equals, not like you're saving me. I've never thought I was saving you, Lena. You're saving yourself. I'm just trying not to be an obstacle. The words landed soft. True. Lena reached for her wine. My friend Maya thinks I'm making a huge mistake. She's probably right. She thinks you're going to hurt me, intentionally or not. I might. Dominic's eyes held hers. You might hurt me too. That's the risk. You're not worried about the power imbalance? I'm terrified of it. But I'm also aware enough to keep checking myself. To listen when you tell me I'm overstepping. To remember that my money doesn't give me rights to your time or your choices or your body. Lena's throat tightened. Have you done this before? Gotten involved with an artist you're patroning? Never. You're the first person I've wanted to know beyond the transaction. Why me? Because you make me feel something I thought I'd lost. Because you see who I actually am and you're not scared of it. Because when you collapsed in that ballroom, I caught you, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Lena's hands were shaking slightly. That's a lot of pressure. I'm not asking you to fix me or complete me or any of that romance novel bullshit. I'm just asking if you want to see where this goes. Carefully, honestly. She studied his face. The sharp angles, the gray at the temples, the scars on his knuckles. The man who displaced families and made fortunes and also cooked pasta from scratch and looked at her art like it was rewriting him. I want to, she said quietly. I'm just scared. Of what specifically? That I'll wake up one day and realize I've lost myself in you. That the art will become about pleasing you instead of saying what I need to say. That people will always see me as the artist Dominic Rausch discovered and never just as Lena Virelli. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Those are all legitimate fears. I know, and I can't promise none of them will happen, but I can promise to keep asking you what you need, to step back when you tell me to remember that your work exists independent of me. Can you actually do that? Step back when you want to fix things? I'm learning to. He smiled slightly. You're a good teacher. They talked for 3 hours, about boundaries and expectations and how to navigate the impossible situation they'd created. About what it would look like after the commission ended, about whether they could actually separate the business from the personal or if it was already too tangled. No conclusions, just honesty. When they left, Dominic walked her to the subway again. The city was sharp with December cold, Christmas lights strung across streets, the particular energy of New York before the holidays. At the top of the stairs, he stopped her with a hand on her arm. Lena. She turned. He looked at her like he was memorizing details again. Then he leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, to say no, to end this before it started. She didn't. The kiss was gentle, careful. His hand came up to cup her face and Lena felt it everywhere. The warmth of him, the certainty, the terrifying rightness of it. When they pulled apart, his thumb brushed her cheekbone. Still terrified? He asked. More now. Good. Me too. Lena went home dizzy. Spent the night staring at her ceiling, replaying the kiss, trying to figure out if she just made the best decision of her life or the worst. Get. The 4th painting came out different, softer, 2 figures in a doorway, not quite touching, light bleeding around them. You couldn't see their faces, just the space between them, charged, uncertain, full of possibility. She didn't title it, didn't need to. When Dominic came to see it, because they'd agreed he could visit the loft now with warning, he stood in front of it for a long time. Is this us? He asked finally. Maybe. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. He looked at her. Same thing, usually. They were careful with each other over the next month. Saw each other twice a week. Sometimes dinner, sometimes just walking through the city, once to a museum where they argued about a Caravaggio until security asked them to quiet down. They kissed again. Several times. But Dominic never pushed for more, and Lena was grateful. They were already crossing enough lines. The gallery show approached. Rachel wanted breathing room, the meeting, and the untitled doorway piece. Lena agreed to everything except the first one. It's already sold, she told Rachel. Can you negotiate it back? No. She didn't explain that Dominic would probably give it back if she asked. That wasn't the point. That painting belonged to him now. It was part of their origin story, and she wasn't ready to complicate that. Rachel accepted it, asked for a different piece. Lena gave her the upgrade instead. The show was set for late January. Opening night would be crowded. Critics, collectors, other artists. Lena's work would hang alongside 5 other emerging artists, all fighting for attention and validation and the slim possibility of a solo show down the line. Are you nervous? Maya asked over coffee 2 weeks before the opening. I'm nauseous. Good nervous or bad nervous? Both. Lena stirred sugar into her cup. What if no one likes it? What if they only like it because Dominic's been talking me up? What if you're amazing and this is the beginning of everything you've worked for? Lena managed a smile. That's scarier somehow. I know. Maya reached across the table, squeezed her hand. But you're ready. The work is ready. And even if Dominic opens some doors, you're the one who's going to walk through them. The words helped. A little. That night, Lena finished the 5th painting. A city street, empty except for a single figure walking away from the viewer. Buildings looming, sky pressing down. But there was light somewhere ahead, just out of frame, pulling the figure forward. She called it moving toward and knew it was about her. 1 painting left. Then the commission would be done and she'd have to figure out what came next. With her art, with Dominic, with the life she was building that looked nothing like the one she'd imagined a year ago. Quiet. The explosion came 3 days before the opening. Lena was at the loft, working on the final painting, when her phone started buzzing. Text after text, Instagram notifications, emails. She picked it up and her stomach dropped. A gossip blog. Not even a major one, just one of those social media-fueled rumor mills that fed on Manhattan drama. The headline was Pure Poison, Real Estate, Titan's Newest Acquisition, Emerging Artist or Emerging Romance. Below it, photos. Her and Dominic leaving the wine bar, kissing at the subway station, walking through the West Village with his arm around her shoulders. And below that, speculation presented as fact. Sources say Rausch has sponsored Virelli's upcoming gallery debut, paying for her workspace and buying her art in a relationship that blurs the line between patron and paramour. Is her inclusion in the Morse Gallery Group show based on talent or on who she's sleeping with? Lena read it 3 times, each time worse than the last. Her phone rang. Rachel Morse. Have you seen it? Rachel's voice was tight. Just now. We need to talk. Can you come to the gallery? When? Now. The subway ride was a blur. Lena couldn't stop refreshing the blog post, watching the comments multiply. Most were vicious, some were just curious. A few were defending her, but they were drowned out by the noise. Gold digger, sleeping her way to success. Bet the art's not even hers. Each word a knife. Rachel was waiting when Lena arrived. Office door closed, expression carefully neutral. Sit, she said. Lena sat. Is it true? Rachel asked. Are you involved with Dominic Rausch? It's complicated. That's not an answer. Lena's hands clenched in her lap. We're seeing each other, but he didn't buy my way into this show. You chose my work. Did I? Rachel leaned back. Or did I choose it because his name was attached, even if I didn't know it consciously? That's not... You said the work was honest, raw. You said... I said a lot of things before I knew you were fucking your patron. The words landed like a slap. We're not... Lena stopped, breathed. He commissioned 6 paintings. That's business. What's happening between us personally is separate. Nothing is separate in this world. You know that. Rachel's expression was harder now. I have a reputation to protect. This gallery is built on discovering talent, not showcasing vanity projects funded by billionaires' egos. My work isn't a vanity project. Maybe not. But how do I prove that now? How do I convince critics to take you seriously when the first thing they'll Google is your relationship with the man who could buy and sell half of them? Lena felt something cracking. So you're pulling me from the show? I'm considering it. Please don't. The words came out raw. Please. I've worked my entire life for this. The paintings are good. You know they are. They exist independent of Dominic, independent of anything except what I needed to say. Rachel was quiet for a long moment, studying Lena's face. I want to believe that, she said finally, but I need to think about this. I'll call you tomorrow. Lena left the gallery feeling like she was made of glass. One wrong move and she'd shatter completely. She called Dominic from the street. He answered immediately. Did you see it? Her voice was shaking. Yes. Lena, I'm so sorry. Did you know we were being photographed? No, I would have warned you. I would have. This is going to ruin everything. She was pacing now, people flowing around her on the sidewalk. Rachel's thinking about pulling me from the show. The comments are, she couldn't finish. I'll fix it. Dominic's voice was hard. I'll call the blog, threaten legal action. That'll make it worse. That'll make it look like you're controlling everything. Then what do you want me to do? Lena stopped, closed her eyes. I don't know. I don't know. Lena, I have to go. She hung up, stood there on the corner of 22nd and 10th, the city churning around her, and felt the full weight of it. This was the price. This was what happened when you mixed art and money and want. When you tried to have something pure and something complicated at the same time. When you fell for the man who could make or break you with a single phone call. Her phone buzzed again. Maya. Just saw. Come over. Now. Lena went. Sikis. Maya's apartment was small and warm and smelled like jasmine tea. She took one look at Lena's face and pulled her into a hug. Fuck them, Maya said fiercely. Fuck all of them. Lena let herself be held, let herself break a little. When they finally pulled apart, Maya made tea and they sat on her secondhand couch, and Lena told her everything. The commission, the loft, the dinners and conversations, and the kiss, the way it had all felt possible until it exploded across the internet. Do you love him? Maya asked finally. Lena's throat tightened. I don't know. Maybe. It's too soon to... Lena, do you love him? The truth sat heavy in her chest. Yeah, I think I do. Maya nodded slowly. And does he love you? He says he cares about me, that I matter, but love... She stopped. We haven't used that word. Do you think he's using you, collecting you like he collects art? No. The answer came immediately. No, I don't think that. I think he sees me, the real me. And I think I scare him as much as he scares me. Then fuck the noise, Maya's voice was fierce. You made the work before you met him. You'll make work after him if it doesn't work out. Your talent exists independent of his money. Anyone who can't see that is choosing not to. Rachel can't see it. Then make her see it. Go to that opening, show those paintings, let the work speak. Lena wanted to believe it was that simple, but her phone kept buzzing with notifications. The internet kept churning. And somewhere in a tower overlooking the city, Dominic was probably trying to figure out how to fix something that might be too broken. She went home that night to her old apartment, hadn't given it up yet, couldn't quite let go of the safety net, and sat in the familiar space and tried to breathe. Her phone rang. Dominic again. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Hi, she said. Are you okay? His voice was raw. Not really. What can I do? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything... Lena, listen to me. He stopped. Breathed. I'm going to release a statement tomorrow, confirming we're seeing each other personally, clarifying that I've bought your art because it's extraordinary, not because we're involved, making it clear that your talent exists independent of me. That'll just add fuel. It'll give context, and it'll stop the speculation. A pause. Unless you'd rather I stay silent. This is your call. Lena closed her eyes, thought about visibility, about owning the narrative before it owned her, about stepping forward instead of hiding. Make the statement, she said, but don't defend me. Don't make it sound like I need defending. Just state facts. I can do that. And Dominic? Yeah? After this, after the show, we need to figure out if this can actually work. If we can be together without destroying each other. I know. I'm not giving up the art for you. I would never ask you to. But I might have to give up you for the art. Silence. heavy. "I know that too," he said finally, "and if that's what you choose, I'll understand." They hung up and Lena sat in her apartment and stared at nothing, and knew the next 3 days would determine everything. Either she'd walk into that gallery and claim her space as an artist, independent and undeniable, or she'd walk in as Dominic Rausch's girlfriend who made pretty paintings he bought. There was no middle ground anymore. The point of no return was here. And Lena was standing right on the edge, heart pounding, everything she'd ever wanted and everything she'd ever feared balanced on the same knife point. Opening night was in 72 hours. She had to decide who she was going to be. 72 hours became 71, became 70, became a countdown. Lena felt in her bones. She didn't sleep the first night. Just paced her apartment, phone face down on the table, because every time she looked at it, there were more comments, more speculation, more strangers deciding who she was based on a few photographs and a poisoned headline. At 3 a.m., she gave up on rest and went to the loft. Her loft, the one Dominic paid for. The irony wasn't lost on her. The sixth painting was still unfinished, had been for days. She'd started it 3 times, scraped it down twice, couldn't find the thing she needed to say. Now she stood in front of the blank canvas, not blank anymore, just confused, layers of false starts showing through like ghosts, and felt the weight of it. This was supposed to be the culmination, the final piece of the commission that would prove she could deliver, could be professional, could separate the work from everything else. Instead, it stared back at her, mute and accusing. Lena picked up her palette knife, started scraping, took the whole mess down to bare canvas, years of art school training screaming that you don't destroy work this close to a deadline, but she couldn't finish a lie. Couldn't make something safe when everything else was burning. She worked until dawn. No plan. Just instinct and rage and the feeling that had been building since the blog post dropped. Started with newspaper, printed out the gossip article, the comments, screenshots of the worst ones. Tore them into pieces. Started layering them on canvas with gel medium, words fragmenting, bleeding together. Then paint. Raw sienna and carbon black and cadmium red like arterial blood. A figure emerging from the text, or being consumed by it, hard to tell. Face obscured by headlines, hands reaching toward something outside the frame, or maybe just reaching, period, desperate and futile. She titled it Public Consumption and knew it would hurt to look at. Good. Everything hurt right now. Dominic's statement dropped at 9 a.m. Lena was still at the loft, paint-stained and exhausted, when her phone started buzzing again. She picked it up with shaking hands. The statement was on his company website. Professional. Precise. Everything Dominic was when he wasn't being vulnerable. I can confirm that I am personally involved with artist Lena Virelli. I can also confirm that I have purchased her work and provided studio space as part of a standard commission arrangement. These are separate matters. Ms. Virelli's inclusion in the Morse Gallery exhibition was achieved entirely on the merit of her work, without my involvement or influence. Her talent is extraordinary and exists independent of our personal relationship. I ask that the media and public respect her privacy and judge her art on its own considerable merits. It was good, measured, probably vetted by lawyers. It also made everything worse. The comments came immediately, half calling him a liar, half accusing Lena of manipulation, some new creative conspiracy theories about her using him for access, a few, a very few, saying the art should speak for itself. But the damage was done. The narrative was set. Girl meets billionaire. Billionaire buys girl's art. Girl gets gallery show. Simple story. Neat. Didn't matter if it was true. Lena's phone rang. Rachel Morse. She answered. Hi. I've made my decision. Rachel's voice was flat, professional distance. You're still in the show. Relief crashed through Lena so hard she had to sit down. Thank you, But there are conditions. The relief curdled. What conditions? You do not mention Dominic Rausch in any press. You do not appear with him at the opening. You make it clear in every interview that your work exists independent of him. A pause. And if this relationship continues to generate negative attention, I reserve the right to remove you from future exhibitions. Lena's jaw clenched. So I have to hide who I'm with to be taken seriously as an artist. You have to choose what matters more, your relationship or your career. Because right now, they're incompatible. That's not fair. Fair doesn't matter. Optics do. Perception does. And the perception right now is that you're a kept woman playing artist. Rachel's voice was hard. Prove them wrong or prove them right. Your choice. She hung up. Lena sat very still in the loft, surrounded by her paintings, and felt something break that hadn't broken yet. Not her resolve, not her talent. Something smaller and more important. The belief that she could have both. That she could make art and love Dominic and not have to sacrifice one for the other. That was always fantasy. The world didn't work that way. Especially not for women. Especially not for women who dared to want more than one thing at once. She called Dominic. He answered immediately. Did you see Rachel's conditions? She didn't bother with preamble. What conditions? Lena told him. All of it. The continued inclusion, the restrictions, the implicit threat. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. I'll talk to her. No. The word came out sharp. You talking to her proves their point, proves you're controlling everything. Then what do you want me to do? Stay away from the opening. Silence. Heavy. Lena, I mean it. If you're there, every question will be about us. Every review will mention your name. I'll be Dominic Rausch's girlfriend who paints instead of Lena Virelli. Artist. You're more than that. Everyone who sees the work will know you're more than that. Will they? Or will they see what they want to see? Her voice cracked. I need to do this alone. I need to prove I can stand on my own. You've always stood on your own. Then let me prove it publicly. Dominic's breath was rough over the line. If that's what you need. It is. Okay. The word was quiet, defeated. I'll stay away. Thank you. Lena. He stopped, started again. I love you. I should have said it before. I love you. And I'm sorry this is happening. The words should have felt good, should have been everything. Instead, they felt like an anchor tied around her neck while she was trying to swim. I love you too, she whispered. That's the problem. She hung up before he could respond. The next 2 days were a fever of preparation. Lena delivered the 3 paintings to the gallery, the meeting, the upgrade, and public consumption. Watched Rachel's face as she unwrapped the last one, the raw newspaper and anguished figure. This is new, Rachel said. Finished it yesterday. It's brutal. It's honest. Rachel studied it for a long moment. It's going to make people uncomfortable. Good. That's the point. Something shifted in Rachel's expression. Not quite approval, but maybe respect. Okay, we'll hang it center. Lena spent the next day doing press. Small outlets, art blogs, a podcast about emerging artists, same questions over and over. Where did she study? What influenced her work? Who were her favorite artists? Any mention of Dominic got deflected hard. I prefer to let the paintings speak for themselves, became her mantra. Some interviewers pushed. Most let it go. One, a sharp-eyed woman from an art magazine, asked point blank, Are you sleeping with your patron? Lena looked her dead in the eye. My personal life is irrelevant to my work. Is it? Or is it the context that makes the work possible? The work exists because I have something to say. The circumstances that allowed me time to say it are secondary. But those circumstances include a... Next question. The interview went up that afternoon. Comments were split. Some praising her for maintaining boundaries, others calling her evasive. Lena stopped reading halfway through and focused on the only thing she could control, showing up. Opening night arrived cold and bright. January in New York, the kind of day where the air hurt your lungs and the sky was too blue to be real. Lena woke up in her old apartment, had been sleeping there the past 2 nights, needing the familiar discomfort, and stared at her ceiling and tried to breathe normally. This was it. The moment everything either crystallized or shattered. She dressed carefully, black dress, same one from the first delivery to Dominic's office. Felt like armor now, leather jacket, boots, hair down, minimal makeup. Wanted to look like herself, not a version packaged for consumption. Maya met her at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the gallery. You ready? Maya asked. No. Good. You'd be insane if you were. Maya squeezed her hand. Remember, you made extraordinary work. That's what matters. Everything else is noise. The noise is really loud. So be louder. They walked to the gallery together. It was 5 p.m., an hour before official opening. Rachel wanted the artist there early for final checks, press photos, the mechanical prep before the flood. The gallery was transformed. White walls, track lighting, 6 artists' work displayed in careful groupings. Lena's 3 pieces were in the back corner, not hidden, but not front and center either, except public consumption. That one was center. Impossible to miss. Lena stood in front of it and felt her stomach drop. It looked different here. More raw, more accusatory. The figure drowning in text, in speculation, in other people's narratives. It was almost too honest, too exposed. Having second thoughts? Rachel appeared beside her. Wondering if I went too far. Art's job is to go too far. Otherwise, it's just decoration. Rachel studied the painting. This one's going to generate conversation. Might not all be positive. I know. You prepared for that? Lena thought about the comments, the blog posts, the strangers who'd decided she was a gold digger or a fraud or a kept woman. Thought about standing in front of them and defending work they'd already decided not to respect. No, she said honestly. But I'm doing it anyway. Rachel almost smiled. That's the right answer. The other artists filtered in. Lena exchanged awkward hellos, felt the weight of being the one everyone had Googled, the one with the scandal. The others were young like her, talented like her, but their biggest obstacle was obscurity. Hers was visibility. 6 p.m. arrived, the doors opened, people flooded in. Collectors, critics, art students, the casually curious. Lena stood near her pieces and watched people approach. Some looked genuinely engaged. Others had that careful gallery face, the one that gave nothing away, reserved judgment, calculated value. She answered questions when asked, explained her process, talked about materials and inspiration and the relationship between text and image, avoided any mention of Dominic like he was a landmine. It worked. Mostly. Until a man in an expensive suit approached the meeting and studied it for a long moment. Fascinating commentary on capitalism, he said. Very angry. Is this about anyone specific? Lena's throat tightened. It's about systems, power structures. Right, systems. He looked at her, recognition in his eyes. You're the one dating Dominic Rausch. I'm the one who painted this. Of course. But the irony is delicious, isn't it? Critiquing the very system that's funding your art. The system funds all art. Galleries, collectors, patrons. It's always been about money and power. I'm just making it visible. By sleeping with the enemy? The words were said lightly. Cocktail party malice. But they landed like a fist. My personal life is the context for the work. Can't separate them. He smiled, not kind. But hey, get yours. Smart play. He walked away before Lena could respond, left her standing there, shaking slightly, wanting to scream or cry or punch something. Maya appeared at her elbow. Breathe. I can't do this. You are doing this. One asshole doesn't define the night, but it wasn't one. Over the next hour, Lena got variations on the same theme. Polite inquiries that were actually accusations. Compliments that had teeth. People who looked at her art and saw Dominic's money. People who couldn't separate the work from the scandal. A few looked at the paintings and really saw them, asked real questions about technique, about intention, about what drove her. Those conversations felt like oxygen, but they were outnumbered. By 8 p.m., Lena was exhausted, smiled so much her face hurt, defended herself so many times the words felt meaningless. She escaped to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and let herself shake. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dominic. How's it going? She stared at the message, wanted to call him, wanted to hear his voice telling her she was doing great. The work was extraordinary. Fuck everyone who couldn't see it. But that would be leaning on him, proving she needed him, reinforcing every narrative about dependent women and powerful men. So she typed back, fine, busy, talk later, put the phone away, washed her hands, fixed her face, went back out. The gallery was packed now. Someone had sold a piece, One of the other artists, a sculptural thing Lena hadn't paid much attention to. Rachel was beaming. The artist was crying happy tears. It was beautiful, and Lena felt nothing but envy. She circulated, smiled, answered more questions. A critic from a major publication asked about her relationship with patronage, and Lena gave her practiced answer about letting the work speak. The critic's expression was skeptical, but she moved on. By 9 p.m., Lena's feet hurt and her head was pounding, and she wanted to go home. But Maya caught her arm. "Red dot," Maya whispered. Lena followed her gaze. The upgrade had a small red sticker next to it. Sold. Her heart kicked. "Who bought it?" "I'll find out." Maya disappeared into the crowd. Lena stood frozen, staring at the red dot like it might vanish. Someone had bought her work. Someone who wasn't Dominic. Someone who saw value in... Lena Virelli? She turned. A woman, mid-50s, elegant in the way money makes you elegant, extended her hand. "I'm Victoria Chen. I bought your painting." Lena shook her hand, mind racing. "Thank you. That means... It's extraordinary, the way you've used the newspaper fragments to fragment the figure. The commentary on development and displacement." Victoria smiled. "I run a foundation that funds housing initiatives. This piece speaks to everything we're trying to address." That's, Lena's throat was tight. "That's exactly what I hoped it would do. I'd love to commission something for our new office building, if you're taking commissions." Yes, absolutely." They exchanged information. Victoria mentioned a budget that made Lena's head spin. Then she moved on, and Lena stood there trying to process. A real commission, from someone who wasn't Dominic, from someone who saw the work. She wanted to text him, wanted to share this. But before she could pull out her phone, Rachel was at her side, expression tight. "We need to talk. Now." The tone made Lena's stomach drop. "What's wrong?" Rachel pulled her into the back office, closed the door, turned with an expression Lena couldn't read. "When were you going to tell me?" "Tell you what?" Rachel pulled out her phone, showed Lena a website, art news outlet. The headline made the room tilt. "Exclusive. Dominic Rausch purchased multiple works by girlfriend through shell companies." Lena's vision tunneled. "What?" "According to this, Rausch has been buying your work anonymously, including the piece Victoria Chen just purchased. She's the director of a foundation he funds. The whole thing was a setup." The words weren't processing, couldn't be processing. No, that's... Victoria said, "Victoria is on his payroll. The foundation is legitimate, but he's the primary donor. And according to their sources, he arranged the purchase to make it look like independent validation." Lena's hands were shaking. "Who's the source?" "Anonymous. But they have documentation. Shell companies, wire transfers, emails between Rausch and Chen discussing supporting the artist's career." Rachel's expression was hard. "Did you know?" No, I had no idea." "Really? Because this looks coordinated. Looks like you and Rausch manufactured legitimacy." "I didn't know." Lena's voice cracked. "I swear to God I didn't." "Then you're either complicit or you're a fool. Either way, I can't have this in my gallery." The room was spinning. "Rachel, please. The pieces come down tonight. You're out of the show." "You can't. The opening's not even over. Watch me." Rachel's voice was ice. "I gave you a chance. I told you to keep the relationship separate from the work. You couldn't do that. Or he couldn't. Doesn't matter which. Please, just let me talk to him. Let me figure out what..." "There's nothing to figure out. You're done here." Rachel left. Lena stood in the office, alone, the walls closing in. Pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Called Dominic. He answered immediately. "Lena, tell me it's not true." Silence. "Dominic, tell me you didn't buy the painting through Victoria Chen." "I can explain." "Oh my God!" The world was ending. "Oh my God, you did." "Lena, listen to me." "How many? How many of the sales were you?" "Does it matter?" "How many?" His breath was rough. "All of them. Every painting sold tonight. I arranged it." Lena's knees buckled. She sat down hard in Rachel's desk chair. "Why?" "Because I knew how tonight would go. Knew people would question you, doubt you, make it about us instead of the work. I wanted you to have validation, real validation." It's not real if you bought it. The appreciation is real. Those collectors genuinely love the work. I just made sure they saw it, made sure they had the opportunity. You manipulated everything, Lena was shouting now. Didn't care who heard. You made me think I was succeeding on my own when it was all you. All your money, your connections, your fucking control. I was trying to help. You were trying to fix things, like you always do, like I'm another problem you can solve with a wire transfer. Her vision was blurring. Tears or rage or both. Did you ever believe I could make it without you? Or was I always just another acquisition? That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Lena laughed. Ugly sound. I just got kicked out of my first gallery show because of you. Because you couldn't let me fail or succeed on my own. You had to control the outcome. I was protecting you. I don't need protection. I need to know if I'm actually good or if I'm just good at fucking someone with money. The words hung there. Brutal. True. Dominic's voice when he spoke was quiet, broken. You know that's not... Do I? Because from where I'm standing, everything I have is because of you. The loft, the materials, the commissions, the sales, all of it traces back to your bank account. So tell me, Dominic, what's mine? What did I actually earn? Your talent, your vision, your... My what? My authenticity? Hard to be authentic when I'm bankrolled by the system I'm critiquing. Lena stood, paced, couldn't be still. I defended you, defended us, told myself we could make this work, that you understood boundaries, that you respected my independence. I do respect. You don't. You can't. Because respect means letting me fail, letting me struggle, letting me find out if I'm good enough without your thumb on the scale. You are good enough. I'll never know that now, she was screaming. I'll never know because you've tainted everything. Every success is suspect. Every opportunity is your machination. I can't trust any of it. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. What do you want me to do? I want you to have stayed out of it. I want you to have let me fail if I was going to fail. I want... Her voice broke. I want to go back to before I met you and do this the hard way. You can't. I know. The truth of it crushed her. I know, and that's the worst part. You've ruined me for the struggle, made me dependent on comfort I didn't earn, and now I have to figure out who I am when I strip all of that away. Lena, we're done. The commission is done. Whatever this was between us is done. Please don't. I'm keeping the money, all of it, because I did the work even if the sales were fake. But I'm giving up the loft. I'm giving up access to you. I'm giving up everything that isn't mine. The work is yours. The talent is yours. Nothing I did changes. Everything you did changes everything. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. Don't contact me. Don't send more money. Don't try to fix this. Just... She stopped, swallowed. Just let me go. I love you. The words were a knife. That's the problem. You love me like I'm something to be fixed, something to be protected and polished and placed on a shelf. I can't be that. I won't be. She hung up, blocked his number before she could second guess, stood in Rachel's office trying to remember how to breathe. Outside, the gallery was still full. People still circulating, drinking wine, looking at art. Her art was still on the walls. For now, Lena walked out through the back exit. Couldn't face the crowd. Couldn't face Maya's sympathy or the other artists' curiosity or the critics who'd probably already seen the article and were calculating their angles. The night air was brutal, cold that cut through her jacket, through her skin, straight to bone. She walked without direction, just away. Away from the gallery, away from the scene of the disaster, away from everything. Her phone buzzed. Maya. She declined the call. Buzzed again. Declined again. Walked for blocks, past boutiques and restaurants, past people going about their regular Friday nights, past the life of the city that didn't care about her small catastrophe. Eventually, she found herself at the loft, the one Dominic paid for, the one she'd just sworn to give up. She let herself in, looked at the space, the perfect light, the work tables, the paintings in various states of completion. Public consumption was still here, the sixth commissioned piece, finished just in time to be meaningless. Lena walked to it slowly, looked at the figure drowning in text, in narrative, in other people's stories. looked at herself. Then she picked up her palette knife and started cutting. Not delicately, not carefully, just slashing through canvas, through paint, through the image of her own consumption, destroying it because it was the only thing left she had control over. The knife went through stretched fabric like it was skin. Satisfying sound. Wet sound. Lena kept going until the painting was ribbons, until her hands were shaking too hard to continue, until she collapsed on the floor surrounded by shredded canvas and ruined work and the evidence of everything she'd lost. She didn't cry. Couldn't. Just sat there in the destruction and felt the weight of it. She'd bet everything on this night. On proving she could stand alone. On showing the world she was more than Dominic Rausch's pet artist. And she'd lost. Not because the work wasn't good, because the game was rigged from the start, and she'd been too naive or too desperate to see it. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Hello? Lena Virelli? A man's voice. Unfamiliar. Who is this? My name is James Correa. I'm a collector. I was at your opening tonight. Lena's jaw clenched. If this is another Dominic setup, it's not. I saw the article, saw what happened, and I want you to know I was going to buy the meeting before any of this came out. Sure you were. I'm serious. I've been following your work since someone posted about you on an art forum 3 months ago. Before the gossip, before any mention of Rausch, just your portfolio site and the paintings. Lena's breath caught. What forum? One I moderate. For emerging contemporary artists. Someone linked your work. I've been waiting to see it in person. Why are you telling me this? Because what Rausch did was wrong. But it doesn't make your work less valuable. Doesn't make you less talented. A pause. And I wanted you to know that before you do something stupid like quit. I'm not quitting. Good. Because the art world needs what you're saying, needs your voice. Don't let this silence you. I don't even know you. No, but I know your work. And I'm not the only one. He paused. Think about it. Then call me if you want to talk about a real commission. No strings, no hidden patrons, just an artist and a collector who believes in what she makes. He gave her his number, hung up. Lena sat there in the ruins of her 6th painting and stared at her phone and tried to understand what just happened. Someone had seen her work before Dominic. Someone had followed her independent of the scandal. Someone believed in her without the money or the drama or the complicated mess of it all. It should have felt like salvation. Instead, it felt like the cruelest test. Because now she had to decide, did she believe in herself enough to keep going? Did she have the strength to rebuild from nothing after tasting everything? Did she want it badly enough to do it the hard way, the right way, the way that would leave scars but also leave her intact? Lena looked around the loft, at the space she'd have to give up, at the paintings she'd made here, at the evidence of what she could be when she had resources. Then she looked at her hands, paint-stained, calloused, the hands that made the work before Dominic and would make work after him. She pulled out her phone, called Maya. Where are you? Maya answered immediately. I've been trying to reach. I need help. Anything. I need to move out of the loft tonight. Need to pack everything. Need to go back to my apartment and figure out how to do this without him. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Maya? Yeah? It's going to be bad. For a while. I'm going to be broke and struggling and probably fail a lot before I figure this out. I know. And I need you to not let me contact him, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much I want to. I've got you. Okay. Lena stood, looked at the shredded canvas. Okay. Let's do this. She hung up and started packing. Brushes first, then paints, then the finished canvases, each one a piece of this chapter she was ending. Public consumption stayed in pieces on the floor. Couldn't be saved, didn't want to save it. That painting was about drowning, about being consumed by narrative. The next version would be about swimming, about making it to shore. If she could figure out how. The loft was almost empty when Maya arrived with 2 friends and a borrowed van. They didn't ask questions, just helped pack, helped load, helped Lena carry everything back to Bushwick, back to the apartment with the broken heater and water-damaged ceiling, back to the life she'd tried to escape. By 2 a.m., everything was moved. Lena stood in her old space, surrounded by paintings and supplies, and the ghost of who she'd been before the gala, and felt the weight of it. She'd lost the show, lost Dominic, lost the fantasy that she could have success without sacrifice. But she still had the work, still had her hands, still had the things she needed to say. And maybe that would be enough. Maya hugged her at the door. You going to be okay? Eventually. That's all any of us get. After Maya left, Lena sat on her mattress on the floor and stared at nothing. Her phone was silent. Dominic blocked. The gallery closed. The critics already writing their pieces about the scandal, about the failed artist who couldn't separate art from commerce. Let them write. She'd make them eat those words. Eventually. First, she had to figure out who she was when nobody was watching. When there was no patron, no savior, no man with scarred hands and a penthouse view telling her she was extraordinary. Just Lena Virelli and a canvas and the brutal, beautiful truth of making something from nothing. She picked up her phone, called the number James Kerrigan had given her, left a voicemail. This is Lena. I want to talk about that commission. No strings, no safety nets, just the work. Then she set the phone down, pulled out a sketchbook, and started drawing. The figure was drowning still. But this time she was also swimming, fighting, refusing to go under. This time she'd make it, or she'd drown trying. Either way, it would be hers. The first week back in Bushwick was hell. Not metaphorical hell. Actual waking up at 3 a.m. because the apartment was so cold she could see her breath hell. Actual eating ramen for 5 days straight because her bank account was running dry hell. Actual staring at blank canvas and feeling nothing hell. Lena had forgotten what this felt like. Or maybe she'd just gotten soft. 3 months of heated studio space and quality materials and not having to choose between paint and groceries had rewired something in her brain. Now she was back to the basics, and her body was in shock. But she painted anyway, started small. Sketches first, because canvas was expensive and she couldn't afford to waste it on false starts. Filled 3 notebooks in 4 days. Drew the gallery opening over and over, the faces, the accusations, the moment she'd realized everything was tainted. Drew Dominic's hands, drew her own hands destroying public consumption. Drew until her wrist cramped and the images stopped screaming quite so loud. Maya came by every day. Brought food, brought company, brought the stubborn refusal to let Lena disappear into her own head. You need to respond to the article, Maya said on day 5. Sitting cross-legged on Lena's floor with takeout neither of them could afford, but Maya had bought anyway. What's the point? The point is controlling the narrative before it controls you. It already controls me. Lena stabbed at Lomaine. Everyone thinks I'm a fraud. Responding just makes me look defensive. Everyone thinks Dominic manipulated you. There's a difference. Is there? Maya set down her food. Lena, look at me. Lena looked. You are not a fraud. You are not a kept woman. You are an artist who got tangled up with a complicated man who made terrible decisions. But the work exists independent of him. You know that. I know that. Now you have to make everyone else know it. How? By showing them. By making more work. By refusing to disappear just because one opening went sideways. Maya's voice was fierce. By being so undeniably good that they have to acknowledge you. Lena wanted to believe it. Wanted to channel that fury into productivity, into proof. But mostly, she just felt tired. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She'd been getting those all week, journalists, bloggers, one particularly persistent art student who wanted to interview her for a thesis on scandal and legitimacy. She'd ignored them all. This time she answered. Lena Virelli? Depends who's asking. James Kerrigan. We spoke after your opening, about a commission. Lena sat up straighter. Right, sorry, I've been dealing with fallout, I know. His voice was calm, steady. Are you still interested? Yes, absolutely. Good. Can you meet tomorrow? I'd like to discuss specifics. They set a time and place, a coffee shop in the East Village, neutral ground. After they hung up, Lena stared at her phone and felt something shift. Not hope exactly, more like possibility. Who was that? Maya asked. Someone who might commission work, for real this time. See? It's already starting. Lena wanted to believe her. James Kerrigan was in his 50s, gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses, dressed like a professor. He stood when Lena arrived, shook her hand, gestured to the coffee he'd already ordered for her. Black, right? I took a guess based on the paint stains. Lena looked at her hands, forgot she still had ultramarine under her nails. Good guess. They sat. James pulled out a tablet, brought up images of a space, concrete walls, industrial feel, lots of natural light. This is my home in Red Hook. I'm looking for a large-scale piece for the main room, something that speaks to urban transformation, displacement, and resilience. He looked at her. I think you're the right person. Why me specifically? Because your work doesn't flinch. It shows the cost of progress without romanticizing struggle. That's rare. He paused. And because I believe in supporting artists who refuse to play it safe. Even when playing it safe would have been smarter? Especially then. Lena studied him, looking for the catch, the angle, the hidden Dominic-shaped puppet strings. What's the budget? $20,000. Half up front, half on completion. Timeline is flexible. I'd rather you take the time to make something right than rush something mediocre. The number hit hard. $20,000 was rent for months, was supplies, was breathing room to actually work instead of scrambling for shifts. That's generous. That's market rate for an emerging artist with a strong portfolio and growing recognition. James smiled slightly. The scandal doesn't change the quality of your work, Lena, just makes it more visible. People think I'm a fraud. Some people. Others think you're a victim. Others think you're complicit. Most don't think about you at all. He leaned forward. But the ones who matter, the ones who actually look at art instead of gossip, they see what you're doing. Trust that. Lena's throat was tight. I want to do this, but I need to be clear. No interference. No editorial input. You commission me. You trust me to deliver what I think the space needs. Understood. And if you're connected to Dominic in any way, I'm not. Never met the man. Heard of him, obviously, but we don't run in the same circles. James's expression was open, honest. I collect art because I love it, because it makes my life richer. That's the only agenda here. Lena wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. Okay, she said, let's do it. They shook on it. James transferred the first payment right there, $10,000 appearing in Lena's account like a lifeline, like proof that she could do this without Dominic, that she had value independent of his influence. Walking home, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in 2 weeks, like maybe she'd survived this. The work consumed her. Lena spent 3 days just observing Red Hook, walked the streets, photographed buildings, talked to residents about what the neighborhood used to be versus what it was becoming, collected stories of displacement, of resilience, of people fighting to stay in a city that didn't want them anymore. It felt familiar, personal. She started sketching. Not Dominic this time. Not the gallery disaster. Just the people she'd met. The woman who'd lived in Red Hook for 40 years and watched her rent triple. The man who'd owned a bodega that got bought out by a developer. The artist collective that had been evicted to make room for luxury lofts. 42 families, different faces, same story. The painting came together slowly. Large scale, 10 feet by 8 feet, oil and mixed media. Lena built it in layers, photographs of old Red Hook underneath, fragments of eviction notices, newspaper clippings about development. Then the figures, emerging from the text like ghosts or survivors. Couldn't tell which. Maybe both. She worked 12, 14, 16 hours a day. Forgot to eat until Maya showed up with food. Forgot to sleep until her body forced the issue. The apartment was freezing, but she didn't notice. Just painted until her hands cramped, until the image matched what was in her head, until it hurt to look at. Good. It should hurt. 3 weeks in, she got an email. The art magazine that had interviewed her before the opening wanted to do a follow-up. A profile piece. Focus on how she was rebuilding post-scandal. Lena almost deleted it, but Maya convinced her to respond. You need to reclaim your narrative, Maya said. Let them see who you actually are. The interview happened in Lena's apartment. The journalist, same sharp-eyed woman from before, looked around at the cramped space, the painting stacked against walls, the evidence of someone working without safety nets. This is different from the Tribeca loft, she observed. That wasn't mine. But you worked there. I did. For 3 months. Then I gave it up. Lena met her eyes. Turns out I work better when I'm not comfortable. They talked for 2 hours. About the commission from James? About the gallery disaster? About Dominic, though Lena kept it brief, factual, refused to make him a villain or a victim. Do you regret getting involved with him? The journalist asked. Lena thought about it, really thought. I regret not setting better boundaries. I regret letting his resources become a crutch. But I don't regret him. Even after what he did? He thought he was helping. He was wrong, but his intentions weren't malicious. She paused. The damage was real anyway. Have you spoken to him since the opening? No. Do you want to? Lena's hands clenched. Every day. But wanting something doesn't mean it's good for you. The article went up a week later. The headline was better than expected. Lena Virelli is rebuilding on her own terms. The piece was fair. Showed her apartment, her process, her refusal to disappear or play victim. Quoted James Kerrigan, calling her one of the most vital voices in contemporary art. Included images of the Red Hook piece in progress. The comments were still mixed, but some were shifting. Recognizing that maybe she was more than the scandal, that maybe the work deserved attention independent of the drama. It wasn't redemption, but it was progress. Betrayal. 6 weeks after the gallery disaster, Lena finished the Red Hook painting. Titled it, Still Here, and knew it was the best thing she'd ever made. The figures were haunting, caught between erasure and persistence, their faces fragmentary but defiant. The text underneath was almost archaeological, layers of history being paved over but still visible if you looked close enough. James came to see it in her apartment, stood in front of it for 5 minutes without speaking. This is extraordinary, he finally said. It's angry. It should be. He looked at her. When can you deliver it? Whenever you want. Tomorrow. I want it installed before my opening. Opening? I'm hosting a small gathering, art collectors, critics, a few curators. I'd like to debut the piece there. He paused. And I'd like you to be present, to talk about the work. Lena's stomach clenched. I'm not good at those things. You're better than you think, and people need to see you, need to hear you talk about your process, your vision, need to understand that you're the real thing. What if they don't believe that? Then they're not looking hard enough. James smiled. Trust me, trust the work. The gathering was in 3 days. Lena had 3 days to prepare for another room full of people judging her, another chance to fail or succeed in front of an audience. She wanted to say no, wanted to hide in her apartment and let the work speak for itself. But Maya's words echoed. You need to reclaim your narrative. Okay, Lena said, I'll be there. Botam. The night before James's gathering, Lena couldn't sleep, lay on her mattress staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios. What if Dominic showed up? What if the critics eviscerated her? What if this was another setup, another manipulation she was too naive to see? At 2 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Lena. Dominic's voice, rough, like he hadn't slept either. Don't hang up. Her hand tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? I'm calling from my office. You only blocked my cell. A pause. I know you told me not to contact you. I'm sorry. But I need to say this. I don't want to hear, I saw the article, saw the photo of your new piece. It's extraordinary. Lena's throat closed. Dominic, I'm not trying to win you back. I'm not trying to fix things. He stopped, breathed. I'm proud of you for walking away, for doing this on your own, for proving you never needed me. I did need you. That's the problem. No, you needed resources. You needed opportunity. I provided those things, but I also poisoned them by trying to control the outcome. His voice cracked. You were right about all of it. I treated your career like a problem to solve instead of a path you were building. And I'm sorry. Lena sat up, back against the wall. Why are you calling now? Because I heard about James's gathering tomorrow. And I wanted you to know I won't be there. I won't interfere. Won't send proxies or buy anything or make this about us in any way. How do I know that's true? You don't. You have to trust me, which I know is asking a lot. A long pause. But I'm trying to do the right thing, even if it's too late. Lena's eyes were burning. I miss you. The admission came out raw, unwanted, true. I miss you too. Dominic's voice was barely above a whisper. But you're doing what you need to do, and I need to let you. Yeah. Lena, I have to go. Okay. Good luck tomorrow. Not that you need it. She hung up, sat in the dark, let herself feel it, the want, the loss, the awful knowledge that loving him and being with him were incompatible right now. Maybe forever, but she couldn't think about that. Had to focus on tomorrow, on showing up and being present and proving she could stand in a room full of critics and not collapse. Had to prove it to herself most of all. James's Red Hook loft was stunning. Still here, hung on the main wall, perfectly lit, dominating the space. Lena stood in front of it and felt her chest tighten. It looked different here, more powerful. The figures seemed to move in the light, seemed to breathe. People started arriving at 7. Not as many as the gallery opening, maybe 40 people total, but they were the right people. Serious collectors, museum curators, critics whose opinions actually mattered. Lena wore the same black dress, same armor, stood near her painting and tried not to throw up. James appeared at her elbow. You ready? No? Good. Means you care. He addressed the room. Thank you all for coming. I want to introduce you to Lena Virelli and her extraordinary piece, Still Here. Lena? All eyes turned to her. Lena's mouth went dry. But she thought about the people she'd interviewed in Red Hook, the woman who'd lived there for 40 years, the bodega owner, the artist collective. Their stories weren't hers to hide. This piece is about displacement, she started, voice shaking slightly. About the people who get erased when neighborhoods evolve, when progress happens. She gestured to the painting. These figures are caught between visibility and erasure. They're fighting to be seen, to be remembered, to matter in a city that's decided they don't fit the new vision. Someone in the crowd, a woman in her 60s, expensively dressed, spoke up. Is this personal? Were you displaced? Lena could have deflected, could have kept it abstract. But she thought about truth, about owning her story instead of letting others write it. Not from a physical space, but from a narrative. She met the woman's eyes. I'm sure you've all read about me, about the scandal with Dominic Rausch, about the gallery opening. Murmurs, shifting, people looking uncomfortable or interested, or both. What happened was this. I met someone with resources. He offered help. I took it. Then he crossed lines I hadn't articulated clearly enough, tried to control outcomes I needed to control myself. When that came out, I got erased from my own story, became Dominic Rausch's girlfriend who paints instead of Lena Virelli, artist. Her voice was steady now, stronger. This painting is about fighting that erasure, about insisting on your right to be seen as you actually are, not as others decide you should be. The figures are angry and resilient and refusing to disappear. That's me. That's everyone who's ever been told they don't belong in their own city, their own industry, their own life. Silence. Heavy. Lena's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Then someone started clapping. The 60-something woman. Others joined. Not everyone. Some people looked skeptical. Some uncomfortable. But enough. The applause built until Lena felt it in her chest. The woman who'd started it approached. I'm Marion Fletcher. I run the Fletcher Contemporary Museum. I'd like to talk to you about a solo exhibition. Lena's brain stopped. I'm sorry, what? A solo exhibition. 6 months from now. We have a slot open for emerging artists making politically engaged work. You'd be perfect. Lena couldn't form sentences. Yes, absolutely. They exchanged information. Marion moved on to examine the painting more closely, and other people approached, asking questions about technique, about process, about her other work. Real questions. Engaged questions. Questions that treated her like an artist instead of a scandal. A critic from a major publication wanted to profile her. A collector asked about purchasing studies for Still Here. A gallery owner, not Rachel, someone new, expressed interest in representing her. Lena answered as best she could. Tried to stay present. Tried not to think about how this was what she'd wanted at the Morse Gallery opening. How different it felt when it was real. Halfway through the night, she stepped outside for air. The February cold was sharp but welcome. She leaned against the building and tried to breathe normally. That was quite a speech. Lena's head snapped up. A man, 30-ish, expensive coat, watching her with an expression that made her spine stiffen. "Thanks," she said carefully. "Took guts, admitting you slept your way into opportunity. Not hostile, just observational, cruel." "That's not what I said." "Isn't it? You took Rausch's money, his space, his connections. Now you're here pretending you earned this on merit." Lena's hands clenched. "I did earn this. The painting you just saw? Made in a freezing apartment with supplies I paid for myself. Commissioned by someone who has no connection to Dominic Rausch. This is mine. Sure, but would James Kerrigan have even looked at you without the scandal? Would Marion Fletcher?" He smiled, thin. "You're valuable because you're controversial, not because you're talented." The words landed like punches. Lena felt something crack inside her, not breaking, crystallizing, into fury. "You're right," she said, voice hard. "The scandal gave me visibility I wouldn't have had otherwise, made my name recognizable, put me in rooms I couldn't have accessed on my own." She stepped closer. "But here's what you're missing. I'm making the most of it. I'm turning attention into opportunity. I'm refusing to disappear just because some people think I don't deserve to be here. And that takes more guts than staying invisible and pure." She didn't wait for his response. Walked back inside, heart racing, hands shaking. But she'd said it, owned it, refused to let shame define her. Maya was waiting inside, took one look at Lena's face and pulled her aside. "What happened?" Lena told her. About the man, the accusation, her response. Maya grinned, fierce. "That's my girl. Fuck him. Fuck all of them. I used the scandal. I used the visibility. Does that make me smart, strategic, human?" Maya gripped her shoulders. "You didn't create the circumstances. You're just surviving them. Anyone who can't see that is choosing not to." Lena nodded, tried to believe it. The rest of the night blurred. More conversations, more connections, more evidence that maybe, she was building something real. By 11 p.m., she was exhausted, ready to go home, to process, to let herself feel the weight of what had just happened. James walked her to the door. "You did beautifully. I almost threw up twice." "But you didn't. You stood there and told your truth and people listened." He paused. "Marion Fletcher doesn't offer solo shows lightly. This is the real thing, Lena." "I know, She stopped. "I keep waiting for it to fall apart, for someone to expose me as a fraud." "You're not a fraud. You're an artist who got tangled up in circumstances beyond your control and who's fighting your way out." James smiled. "That's not weakness. That's the work." Lena nodded, thanked him, stepped out into the cold night and felt it hit her. She'd done it. She'd shown up, spoken her truth, claimed her space, and she hadn't needed Dominic to do it. The thought should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt like grief. The solo exhibition at Fletcher Contemporary was scheduled for August. 6 months away. 6 months to create a body of work that justified the opportunity. That proved Marion Fletcher's faith wasn't misplaced. Lena threw herself into it, worked until her hands cramped, until her eyes blurred, until the paintings multiplied across her apartment like evidence of obsession. She painted displacement, painted resilience, painted the 42 families and the bodega owner and the woman in Red Hook, painted her own face fragmenting across eviction notices, painted the space between wanting and having, between safety and authenticity, painted Dominic. Couldn't help it. His face kept appearing in the work, sometimes in shadow, sometimes in profile, always present like a ghost. She told herself it was about exploring patronage, about interrogating power, but really it was just about missing him. 3 months in, she got another email. From Dominic. Subject line, no response required. Body. "I saw that you're having a solo show. Congratulations. You deserve this, and so much more. I won't be there. I know my presence would complicate things, but I wanted you to know I'm proud of you. Always." D. Lena read it 17 times, didn't respond, but she saved it. May arrived. The show was 3 months away. Lena had 10 pieces finished, needed 5 more. Was working on something about transformation, figures emerging from rubble, couldn't tell if they were being born or buried, when her phone rang. Rachel Morse. Lena almost didn't answer. but curiosity won. Hello? Lena, it's Rachel. I know. A pause. I wanted to apologize. Lena set down her brush. What? For pulling you from the show, for not giving you a chance to explain, for... Rachel stopped. For letting fear override my judgment. Why now? Because I've been following your career. Saw the article, the piece at James's gathering, the Fletcher Contemporary announcement. You're doing extraordinary work. A pause. And I let the scandal blind me to that. You called me complicit. I was wrong. Or I was scared. Probably both. Rachel's voice was careful. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know I see you now. See what you're doing. Lena's throat was tight. What do you want from me? Nothing. Just to say I'm sorry, and if you ever want to show at Morse Gallery again, the door is open. I'm represented now. I know. I'm not trying to poach you. Rachel sighed. Just trying to do the right thing, even if it's late. After they hung up, Lena sat very still, stared at nothing. Felt the strange weight of vindication that didn't quite satisfy. Rachel was sorry. Marion Fletcher believed in her. James had commissioned her. The work was being seen. Everything she'd fought for was happening. So why did it still feel like something was missing? June. 2 months until the show. Lena was installing piece number 13, a triptych about visibility, about being seen versus being watched, when Maya came by with news. Don't freak out, Maya started. That's never a good beginning. Dominic wrote an essay for Art Forum about patronage and power dynamics. Lena's hands went still. What? Maya pulled it up on her phone, handed it over. The title was simple, When Help Becomes Harm, A Patron's Reckoning. Lena read it standing up. Couldn't sit. Her legs wouldn't work right. The essay was brutal. Dominic dissecting his own behavior, his impulse to control, his belief that money could solve problems it sometimes created. He didn't name Lena directly, but the context was obvious. Talked about buying art through shell companies, about trying to manufacture success instead of letting it happen organically, about the damage done when power imbalances went unexamined. The ending was a gut punch. I loved an artist. I believed in her work, but I didn't trust her enough to succeed or fail on her own terms. In trying to protect her, I nearly destroyed the very thing I claimed to value. This is the trap of patronage, the belief that resources equal wisdom, that money confers rights, that helping someone means controlling their outcomes. I was wrong. She was extraordinary before me. She'll be extraordinary after me. My only role should have been to step back. I failed at that. This essay is my attempt to do better, to acknowledge the harm, to make space for artists to define success without my thumb on the scale. Lena read it 3 times. Each time hit harder. He's destroying his reputation, she said. He's telling the truth. People are going to eviscerate him. Probably. Maya was watching her carefully. How do you feel about it? I don't know. Lena handed back the phone, hands shaking. I don't know. The essay went viral. Art world Twitter exploded. Some people praised Dominic's honesty. Others called it performative, self-serving, an attempt to rehabilitate his image. Feminists debated whether men should get credit for acknowledging their own toxicity. Artists shared their own stories of patronage gone wrong. Lena stayed out of it. Didn't comment, didn't engage, just kept working. But at night, alone in her apartment, she'd reread the essay. Let herself feel the complicated weight of it. He'd heard her. Had actually listened. Had changed or was trying to. That meant something. Didn't fix everything, but it meant something. July. 1 month until the opening. Lena finished the last painting, 15 pieces total, the strongest work she'd ever made. She stood in her apartment surrounded by canvases and felt the enormity of it. This was happening. In 4 weeks, she'd have a solo show at a major contemporary museum. Critics would come, collectors would come. Her work would be judged entirely on its own merits. This was everything she'd wanted, everything she'd fought for. So why did her chest feel hollow? She knew why. Knew what was missing, who was missing. But wanting Dominic and needing to do this alone were incompatible. She'd made her choice, had to live with it. The installation started 3 weeks before the opening. Lena worked with the Fletcher Contemporary curatorial team to place each piece, to create flow and conversation between the paintings. Marion Fletcher was hands-off in the best way, trusting Lena's vision, offering support without interference. "This is a remarkable body of work," Marion said, standing in the gallery space as the paintings went up. "You should be very proud." Lena looked around. At 15 paintings that told the story of displacement, resilience, the cost of survival in a city that didn't want you. At her own face fragmenting across canvases, drowning and swimming simultaneously. "I am," she said, and meant it. Press previews started a week before opening. Journalists came through, asked questions, took photos. The reviews started dropping. They were good, better than good. Virelli has emerged from scandal with a body of work that interrogates the very systems that nearly consumed her. Raw, unflinching, and devastatingly honest. A vital voice in contemporary art. Not all positive. Some critics called the work too obvious, too angry, too caught up in her own story. But even the negative reviews acknowledged the power of it, the refusal to look away. Lena read them all, let herself feel the validation and the criticism equally, tried to stay grounded. 2 days before the opening, she got a package. No return address. Inside was a small painting, oil on wood panel, maybe 8 by 10 inches. A figure in a doorway, half in light, half in shadow. Unsigned. But she knew who'd made it. The painting was beautiful, aching. Lena stared at it and felt her throat close. There was a note. Just 3 words in Dominic's handwriting. "Still rooting for you." She should have sent it back. Should have maintained boundaries. Should have protected herself from the complicated weight of his care. Instead, she hung it in her bedroom, where only she could see it. Opening night arrived. Lena stood in the Fletcher Contemporary Gallery at 6 p.m., an hour before doors opened, and looked at her work displayed like it mattered, like she mattered. Maya appeared at her elbow. "How are you feeling?" "Nauseous." "Perfect." Marion Fletcher gave brief remarks to the staff, talked about the importance of supporting emerging voices, about the power of art to interrogate and illuminate, looked at Lena and smiled. "You ready?" "As I'll ever be." The doors opened. People flooded in. More than expected, the gallery was packed within 20 minutes. Collectors, critics, art students, people who'd followed the scandal and wanted to see what she'd made from the wreckage. Lena moved through the crowd, answered questions, explained process, watched people stand in front of her paintings and actually look, actually see. It was terrifying and exhilarating and exactly what she'd needed. An hour in, a collector offered to buy piece number 7. Cash offer, substantial. Lena said yes, watched Marion put a red dot next to it, and felt something unlock in her chest. 2 hours in, 3 more pieces sold. Critics were taking notes. Curators were talking about acquisitions. This was real. This was happening. Lena was standing in front of Still Here, the red hook piece, now part of the exhibition on loan from James, when she felt it. That particular awareness that meant someone was watching. She turned. Dominic stood at the back of the gallery, not approaching, just there, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Their eyes met across the crowd. Lena's breath caught. He didn't smile, didn't move, just nodded once. Acknowledgement, pride. Goodbye, maybe. Then he turned and walked out. Lena stood frozen, every instinct screaming to follow him, to run after him, to say, what? That she missed him? That she loved him? That she was finally strong enough to be with him without losing herself? Maya touched her arm. You okay? He was here. I know. I saw him. He left. Because he promised he would. Because he's trying to do the right thing. Maya's voice was gentle. Because he loves you enough to let you have this moment without him. Lena's eyes were burning. What if I don't want him to let me go? Then you tell him, but not tonight. Tonight is yours. Celebrate it. She was right. Lena knew she was right. This night was about the work, about proving she could stand on her own. Running after Dominic would undermine everything she'd built. But God, she wanted to. Instead, she stayed, talked to more people, watched more red dots appear. Let Marion introduce her to museum directors and foundation heads, and people whose names she'd only read in art magazines. By 10 p.m., she was exhausted. The crowd was thinning. The night was winding down. Lena found a quiet corner and sat. Let herself breathe for the first time in hours. Marion approached. 8 pieces sold. Multiple acquisition offers for institutional collections. Press coverage beyond what we hoped for. She smiled. You did it, Lena. We did it. No. This is yours. You made the work. You showed up. You claimed your space. Marion paused. I'm already thinking about your next show. Let me finish surviving this one first. Marion laughed, left her alone. Lena sat in the gallery, surrounded by her paintings. The ones that had sold and the ones still waiting, the evidence of what she'd survived and what she'd built, and felt the weight of it settle. She'd done it. Proved she could make it without Dominic, could stand on her own. The victory should have been pure. Instead, it felt incomplete, because the person she most wanted to share it with was the person she'd pushed away to make it possible. Her phone buzzed, text from unknown number. Congratulations. The work is extraordinary. You are extraordinary. I'm sorry I couldn't stay to tell you in person, but I didn't want to complicate your night. This is yours. You earned every moment. I love you. I'm letting you go. D. Lena read it until the words blurred, until she couldn't see the screen through tears. She'd won. She'd proven herself. She'd claimed her place in the art world independent of patronage or scandal, but she'd lost him in the process. And standing there in the gallery at the peak of her success, surrounded by evidence of her triumph, Lena Virelli finally let herself break. Because sometimes winning costs everything. Sometimes proving you don't need someone means losing the chance to want them. Sometimes the price of independence is loneliness. And sometimes you have to decide if the cost was worth it. Lena sat in the empty gallery, her sold paintings watching like witnesses, and faced the final question. Was this enough? Could the work, the recognition, the hard-won independence fill the space Dominic had occupied? Or had she just traded one kind of drowning for another? The answer would determine everything that came next. But tonight she let herself grieve what she'd sacrificed to get here. Tomorrow, she'd figure out if she could live with it. The gallery emptied slowly. Collectors lingering over champagne, critics comparing notes. Maya staying close like a bodyguard while Lena fielded the last questions with a smile that felt painted on. By midnight, everyone was gone except the staff breaking down the bar, the catering crew packing glasses, and Lena standing in the center of her triumph, feeling like she'd won a war and lost something she couldn't name. Marion Fletcher touched her shoulder. Go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow the reviews will hit, and we'll see what happens next. What happened next? Like this was just the beginning instead of the culmination. Like she hadn't already given everything she had. Lena nodded, collected her coat, walked out into August heat that hadn't broken even at midnight, the city humid and restless. Maya walked her to the subway. You okay? Maya asked for the 3rd time that night. I don't know what I am. You're a success. You're legitimate. You're alone. The word came out flat. True. I'm alone, and I don't know if that's what I actually wanted, or just what I convinced myself I needed. Maya stopped walking, made Lena look at her. Do you love him? Yes. Does he love you? He says he does. Then what the fuck are you doing here with me instead of there with him? Lena's throat tightened. Because I needed to prove I could do this without him. Needed to know my success wasn't manufactured. You proved it. 8 paintings sold, museum acquisition interest. Critics calling you vital. You proved it 10 times over. Maya's voice was fierce. Now stop punishing yourself and figure out if you can have both. What if I can't? What if being with him means people will always question? Let them question. You know the truth. He knows the truth. Everyone else is just noise. Maya squeezed her shoulders. You spent 6 months being strong. Maybe it's time to be brave instead. They stood there on the corner of 23rd and 7th, the city churning around them, and Lena felt something shift. Some wall she'd been holding finally crumbling. What if he's moved on? She whispered. Only one way to find out. What? Lena didn't go home. Couldn't. The energy vibrating through her was too big for her apartment, for sleep, for anything except motion. She walked. Blocks and blocks, no destination, just the rhythm of feet on pavement and the question Maya had asked echoing in her skull. What was she doing? She'd pushed Dominic away to prove her independence, had succeeded, had the sold paintings and critical acclaim and museum interest to show for it, had built exactly the career she'd dreamed about back when she was serving champagne and collapsing from hunger. But the cost. The fucking cost. 6 months without him. 6 months of checking her phone and finding nothing. 6 months of seeing his face in her paintings and pretending it was about interrogating power instead of missing him. 6 months of being strong and independent and slowly dying inside. And for what? To prove to strangers she didn't need him? To satisfy critics who'd find something to doubt regardless? To protect herself from vulnerability? Lena stopped walking, found herself in front of 432 Park Avenue without planning it. The tower rising into darkness, light scattered across its height like a vertical city. Dominic was up there somewhere. 58th floor. Probably not sleeping. Probably working or staring at paintings or doing whatever he did at 1 a.m. when the woman he loved had just texted him goodbye. She pulled out her phone, unblocked his number, stared at the contact for a full minute before typing. "Are you awake?" The response came in seconds. "Yes. Can I come up?" Longer pause this time. Lena watched the typing indicator appear and disappear 3 times before the message came through. "Are you sure?" "No. But I'm coming anyway. I'll tell security." The lobby was familiar. Different guard, but same marble, same elevator banks, same mirrors multiplying her anxious reflection into infinity. Lena rode up alone, ears popping, heart hammering so hard she felt it in her throat. The elevator opened. Dominic was standing in the hallway outside his door. Same sharp features, same gray at the temples. But thinner, tired, like the last 6 months had cost him too. They looked at each other across 10 feet of hallway, neither moving, neither speaking, just taking inventory of the damage. "Hi," Lena finally said. "Hi." His voice was rough. "Congratulations on tonight. I meant what I texted." "I know." She stepped closer. "Why did you leave?" "Because I promised I would. Because your success needed to be yours." He paused. "Because seeing you like that, confident and powerful and completely self-possessed, made me realize you didn't need me anymore, if you ever did." "I did need you. I do need you." The admission came out raw. "That's what I've been running from." Dominic's expression cracked. "Lena, can I come in? I don't want to do this in your hallway." He stepped aside. She walked past him into the apartment she'd been in once before, 6 months and a lifetime ago. It looked the same, felt different. Or maybe she was different. Breathing room still hung where she'd last seen it, the woman fragmenting across headlines, screaming or breathing. Lena stared at it and saw herself then, desperate, hungry, on the edge of everything. "You kept it here," she said. "I told you I would. Where I'd see it every day." Dominic closed the door, kept his distance. "It still bothers me, in the best way." They stood there in his living room, all that expensive space between them, and Lena tried to find the words for what she needed to say. Started 3 times, failed 3 times. "I read your essay," she finally managed. Dominic's jaw tightened. "I wasn't trying to make excuses." I know. You were telling the truth about what you did, about the harm." She turned to face him fully. "It helped. Knowing you understood. Knowing you'd actually listened instead of just defending yourself. I should have listened 6 months ago. Should have stepped back when you asked instead of trying to control everything." His hands clenched. "I convinced myself I was helping, that my resources and connections were gifts. Didn't see I was taking away your agency in the process. You were trying to protect me. From failure, from struggle, from the very things that would prove you could survive without me." He moved closer, still not touching. "I treated you like something fragile instead of something strong. That was my failure." Lena's eyes were burning. "I wasn't just strong. I was also scared and broke and desperate for someone to see me. You did that. You saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. That doesn't excuse..." "Shh. I'm not excusing it. I'm saying it's complicated. You helped me and you hurt me, and both things are true." She closed the distance between them. Could see his chest rising and falling now. Could smell his cologne underneath exhaustion. "I spent 6 months proving I didn't need you. And I don't. I can survive on my own. can make good work and build a career and stand in front of critics without collapsing. Then why are you here? Because not needing you doesn't mean I don't want you. Her voice cracked. Because I'm tired of being strong. Tired of proving myself to people who'll doubt me regardless. Tired of sleeping alone and painting your face and pretending I'm over this. Dominic's hands came up, cupped her face with a gentleness that broke something in her chest. I'm not over this, not even close, but I don't know how to be with you without fucking it up again. Neither do I, but maybe we figure it out together. Lena leaned into his touch. 6 months of hunger in the gesture. Maybe we try again with better boundaries, clearer communication, an actual relationship instead of patron and artist playing at something more. You'd be willing to risk that? Risk people saying you're only successful because of me? Let them say it. I know the truth. You know the truth. The work speaks for itself. She smiled, sad. I'm done hiding what I want to protect what I have. Done choosing loneliness over complication. Dominic's thumb brushed her cheekbone. What do you want, Lena? You. This. A chance to try again without the weight of everything that went wrong the first time. She met his eyes. But I need you to understand, I'm not giving up my career, not compromising the work, not letting you or anyone else dictate what I make or how I make it. I would never ask you to. You did before. Maybe not directly, but I know. He stopped her. I know what I did. And I'm telling you, no more shell companies, no more manufactured sales, no more trying to control outcomes. If I buy your art, it's because I want it, and I'll do it openly. If I introduce you to people, I'll tell you first. If I fuck up, I'll own it instead of trying to fix it. That's a lot of promises. I'm a lot of sorry. Lena laughed, wet. That's terrible grammar. I'm aware. His forehead touched hers. I love you. I've loved you since you collapsed in that ballroom and looked at me like I was human instead of useful. I'll love you if we try this again. I'll love you if you walk out right now. That doesn't change. I love you too. The words felt like release, like permission. I've been so angry at you, so hurt. But underneath all of that, I just missed you, missed talking to you, missed the way you look at my paintings like they're rewriting you. They are rewriting me. You are rewriting me. Dominic pulled back just enough to see her face. What do we do now? Start over, but keep the history. Know what we know. Do better. Lena's hands found his chest, could feel his heartbeat under expensive fabric. Date like normal people. Whatever that means. I'm not sure either of us qualifies as normal. Then date like complicated people who care about each other and want to try. Dominic kissed her, slow and careful and full of 6 months of absence. Lena kissed back and felt everything she'd been holding collapse into want, into relief, into the terrifying rightness of being seen and choosing to stay anyway. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers again. Stay tonight, he said. No expectations. Just stay. Okay. They moved to the couch, sat close, but not entangled, talked until sunrise about everything and nothing, about the opening, about his essay, about the 6 months apart, about boundaries they needed and fears they had and the gamble they were taking. People are going to say things, Lena said around 3 a.m., exhaustion and honesty making her blunt. Critics will question if my next success is real. Collectors will wonder if you're involved. The art world thrives on doubt. Let them doubt. Your work will prove them wrong. What if it doesn't? What if I have a bad show? What if the next paintings aren't as strong? Then you'll make more paintings, better ones. That's how this works. Dominic's hand found hers. I'm not expecting perfection, Lena. Just honesty. I can do honesty. Good. So can I. Starting now. He took a breath. I'm terrified of losing you again. Terrified of making the same mistakes. Terrified that my money and influence will always taint what we have. Your money and influence are part of who you are. I can't ask you to pretend they don't exist. But you can ask me to wield them responsibly. To check myself. To remember that loving you doesn't give me rights to your career. He looked at her. So I'm asking you to call me out when I overstep. To trust that I can handle criticism. To not protect me from my own bullshit. Lena smiled. I can definitely do that. They fell asleep on the couch as dawn broke over the city. Lena's head on Dominic's chest, his arm around her shoulders, both of them fully clothed and completely exhausted and finally, together. The reviews of the Fletcher Contemporary show hit the next day. Lena woke up in Dominic's penthouse, showered in a bathroom bigger than her bedroom, borrowed one of his shirts, felt the surreal luxury of not rushing anywhere, and read them over coffee he'd made. They were extraordinary. Not all glowing, but all engaged, taking her work seriously, interrogating her themes, arguing about her approach, treating her like an artist instead of a scandal. The Times called the show a vital meditation on displacement and power. Art News said she was unflinching in her examination of complicity and survival. Even the negative reviews acknowledged the strength of the work. Dominic read them over her shoulder. "You did it. We did it. I did it. I don't know." Lena set down her phone. "It feels different this time. Less like validation, more like conversation. Because you're not desperate for approval anymore. You know what you've made." "Yeah." She turned to look at him. Morning light making his gray hair silver. Exhaustion still visible, but something else too. Peace, maybe. "What happens now? With the reviews?" "With us." Dominic set down his coffee. "We take it slow. Date. Figure out what this looks like when we're not in crisis mode." He paused. "I'd like to take you to dinner. Somewhere nice, somewhere we can be seen together without it being a scandal. People will talk anyway. Let them. I'm done hiding what I want to protect what I have." He smiled, using her words from last night. "If being with you means complications, I'll take complications over loneliness." Lena kissed him. Quick, sweet. "Dinner sounds good, but I'm paying." "Lena, I'm paying. I can afford it now. 8 paintings sold, remember?" His expression softened. "Okay, you pay. You." They spent the morning together, lazy and domestic in a way they'd never been before. Dominic cooked breakfast, omelets, real ones, while Lena sat at the counter and watched his hands work. They talked about nothing important, about the weather, about plans for the week, about a movie one of them wanted to see. It felt normal. It felt possible. Around noon, Lena's phone started buzzing. Interview requests, collector inquiries. A gallery in Los Angeles wanted to talk about representation. She answered the important ones, declined the gossipy ones, let herself feel the weight of being in demand. "I should go," she said finally. "I have things to handle. And I need to sleep in my own bed for a bit. Remember what my own space feels like." "Okay." Dominic didn't argue, didn't try to convince her to stay, just kissed her at the door and said, "Call me when you want to see me again." "I will." "Lena?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for coming back, for giving this another chance." She touched his face. "Thank you for doing the work, for actually changing instead of just promising to." The subway ride back to Bushwick felt different, lighter. Lena looked at her reflection in the dark window and saw someone who'd survived, who'd fought and failed and gotten back up and kept going, someone who'd proven she could stand alone and then chosen not to. That felt like winning. The weeks that followed were a negotiation. Lena and Dominic figuring out what they were to each other when they weren't patron and artist, when the stakes weren't survival, but choice. They had dinner 3 times that first week, went to a museum, walked through Central Park arguing about whether public art needed to be accessible or could be intentionally difficult. Lena kept her apartment, kept her independence, went days without seeing him sometimes, needed that space to remember who she was outside of them. Dominic respected it, didn't push, didn't try to insert himself into her process or her career. When he did buy another painting, a study from the Fletcher show, purchased openly and at market rate, he told her first. Asked if it would complicate things. Lena said yes, but she was okay with complications now. The art world watched, commented, speculated. Some people said she'd sold out. Others said she'd been smart to leverage the situation. Most stopped caring after a few weeks when the next scandal broke. Lena painted through it all, started a new series about choice and agency, about the difference between being saved and saving yourself, about how sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. Marian Fletcher scheduled her next solo show for 18 months out. gave her time and space and complete creative control. A gallery in LA did offer representation. Lena signed with them after checking thoroughly that they had no connection to Dominic. She was building legitimacy piece by piece, show by show, independent of anyone's influence but her own. 3 months after the Fletcher opening, Dominic took her to his mother's grave. They stood in a Queens cemetery on a cold October morning and he told her stories. About growing up poor, about his mother working doubles at the diner, about the promise he'd made to build something that mattered. "She would have liked you," he said. "Would have told me I was an idiot for almost losing you. You didn't lose me. I came back. Because you're braver than I am." Lena took his hand. "We're both brave, and both scared. That's what makes this work." They started spending nights together. Not every night. Lena still needed her space, still worked better in controlled chaos of her apartment, but enough. Enough to build routines, to learn each other's rhythms, to fight about stupid things like whose turn it was to buy groceries and makeup in ways that left them both breathless. It wasn't perfect. Dominic still had impulses to fix things, to use his resources to smooth Lena's path. Lena still had moments of doubt, of wondering if she was compromising something essential by being with him. They talked through it, fought through it, chose each other anyway. 6 months after the Fletcher Contemporary show, Lena got a call that changed everything. The Whitney Museum wanted to acquire Still Here for their permanent collection. Not from James Kerrigan, though he'd agreed to sell, but as a major acquisition. The piece would be displayed prominently, would be part of their contemporary American collection, would be seen by hundreds of thousands of people. Lena stood in her apartment holding the phone and couldn't speak. "Ms. Virelli?" The curator sounded concerned. "Are you there?" "Yeah, sorry. Yes. Yes." They talked details, price, timeline, provenance. When Lena hung up, she sat very still and let herself feel it. Not just the validation, not just the success, but the completion of a circle that had started with her collapsing in a ballroom and being caught by someone who saw her. She called Dominic. "The Whitney wants Still Here," his sharp intake of breath. "Lena, that's extraordinary. I know. I don't know how to process this. Come over. We'll celebrate properly." She went. They drank champagne on his balcony overlooking the city that had tried to break her and instead made her stronger. Watched the sun set over buildings and bridges and the impossible tangle of 8 million lives lived simultaneously. "You did this," Dominic said. "Not me, not luck. You. We did this. You and me and Maya and James and everyone who believed when I couldn't believe in myself." Lena leaned against him. "I'm done pretending I did it alone. Done with the mythology of the solitary artist. I had help. That doesn't make the work less mine." "No, it makes you honest." They stood there until the city lit up beneath them, until the cold drove them inside, until Lena felt the weight of the day settle into something she could carry. That night, wrapped in expensive sheets in Dominic's bed, she said, "I want you to come to the Whitney when they install it. Want you there publicly. No hiding, no protecting my reputation." Dominic propped himself up on one elbow. "You sure?" "I'm sure. You're part of my story, part of my life. I'm not hiding that anymore. People will talk. Let them." She kissed him. "I'm not afraid of complications." Bopad. The Whitney installation happened on a cold March morning, almost a year exactly since the night Lena had collapsed. She stood in the museum watching technicians hang Still Here, the figures drowning and swimming, the text fragmenting beneath them, the whole impossible weight of displacement made visible, and felt the symmetry of it. Dominic stood beside her, Maya on her other side. James Kerrigan had come, Marion Fletcher. Even Rachel Morse, who'd sent flowers with a note that just said, "Proud of you." When the painting was hung, when the lighting was adjusted, when everything was perfect, the curator gave brief remarks about the importance of the work, about its unflinching examination of urban transformation, about Lena's vital voice in contemporary art. Then she turned to Lena. "Would you like to say anything?" Lena looked at the painting, at the people who'd gathered, at the life she'd built from collapse and hunger and the terrible gamble of letting herself be seen. "This painting is about survival," she said, about fighting to be visible in a city that wants to erase you, about the cost of that fight. She paused. I made it during the worst period of my life, when everything was falling apart and I didn't know if I'd make it through. But I did. Because I had help, because I asked for help when I needed it, because I learned that strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about knowing when to reach out. She looked at Dominic, at Maya, at everyone who'd been part of this impossible journey. So this painting is also about gratitude, about the people who catch you when you fall, about the choice to keep going even when it's hard, about believing you're worth the fight. Her voice cracked. Thank you for believing I was worth it, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for being here. Maya was crying. Dominic's hand found hers and squeezed. The small crowd applauded and Lena let herself feel it, all of it, the joy and the grief and the impossible weight of making it to the other side. After the installation, after the champagne and congratulations and photos, Lena and Dominic walked through Central Park. Spring was coming early, trees budding green, the air sharp but promising warmth. I'm proud of you, Dominic said, for everything, for surviving, for thriving, for being brave enough to try again with me. I'm proud of us, for doing the work, for changing, for choosing this even when it's complicated. They stopped at Bow Bridge, looked out at the lake, at the city rising beyond the trees, at the impossible tangle of it all. What happens next? Dominic asked. Lena thought about it, about the painting she wanted to make, about the life she was building, about this man who'd seen her and loved her and hurt her and changed for her. We keep going, keep making mistakes and learning from them, keep choosing each other. She looked at him. Keep being honest even when it's hard. I can do that. So can I. They kissed on the bridge while joggers passed and tourists took photos, and the city churned around them. When they pulled apart, Dominic reached into his pocket. I have something for you. He handed her a small box. Not a ring. Lena's heart settled when she felt the shape. She opened it. Inside was a key. It's to the loft, he said. The Tribeca space. I kept the lease. Thought maybe, if you wanted, you could use it again. No strings, no control, just space to work when your apartment feels too small. Lena stared at the key. Dominic, I know you gave it up to prove a point, and you proved it, but I also know you made some of your best work there. So I'm offering it back. Use it or don't. Sublet it. Turn it into a collective space for other artists. Whatever you want, it's yours. What if I want to share it with you sometimes? Want you to see the work in progress instead of after it's finished? His expression softened. Then I'd be honored. Lena took the key, felt the weight of it. Not a trap this time, not a cage, just a tool, a resource, a choice. Thank you, she said. For this, for everything, for loving me enough to let me go, and then loving me enough to let me come back. Thank you for coming back. They walked out of the park hand in hand, into the city that had tried to break them both, into the life they were building together, messy and complicated and real. Months. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. Lena stood in the same plaza ballroom where she'd collapsed 2 years ago, but this time she wasn't serving champagne. This time she was a guest at the Metropolitan Arts Foundation gala, invited because her work was being honored, because she'd become someone who mattered. The irony wasn't lost on her. Dominic stood beside her in a tuxedo, hand at the small of her back, steady and present. They'd arrived together, walked the red carpet together, answered questions about her work, about the Whitney acquisition, about what came next. No one asked about the scandal. That was old news, ancient history. Lena Virelli was legitimate now, proven, undeniable. Maya was there too, +1 to a curator who'd been trying to date her for months. James Kerrigan, Marion Fletcher. Rachel Morse keeping respectful distance but sending a smile across the room. The art world gathered to celebrate itself, and for once Lena belonged without question. At midnight, the lights dimmed, champagne flowed, the countdown started. Lena found herself in the same spot where she'd collapsed. Same marble floor, same vaulted ceiling, same fractured chandelier light, but everything was different. Dominic pulled her close as the crowd counted down. 10, 9, 8. This is where we started, Lena said. This is where you started. I just caught you. 7, 6, 5. You did more than catch me. You saw me. 4, 3, 2. I still see you. Every day. Every version of you. 1. The room erupted. Champagne corks, noisemakers, the surge of people kissing and celebrating the arbitrary turning of a calendar. Dominic kissed Lena like she was the only person in the room, like the last 2 years had been worth every moment of pain to get here. When they pulled apart, Lena was crying. Happy tears this time. Relief tears. I love you, she said. I love you too. I'm glad I fell. Dominic smiled. I'm glad I was there to catch you. They stood there in the ballroom, the same space where everything had started with hunger and desperation and a stranger's hands breaking her fall, and Lena felt the weight of how far she'd come. From invisible to seen, from surviving to thriving, from alone to choosing not to be. It hadn't been easy, had cost her pride and safety, and the comfortable mythology of the solitary artist, had required her to be vulnerable and ask for help and admit she couldn't do everything alone. But she'd made it, had built a career on her own terms, had found love that didn't diminish her, had proven that strength wasn't about independence. It was about knowing when to reach out and when to stand firm. As the party swirled around them, as the new year settled into being, Dominic leaned close and asked, "What do you want for this year?" Lena thought about it, about the paintings waiting to be made, about the life still being built, about all the ways they'd grow and fight and choose each other. I want to keep doing this, she said. Keep making work that matters. Keep being with you. Keep being honest even when it's hard. She looked up at him. I want to keep becoming who I'm supposed to be. You're already who you're supposed to be. No, I'm always becoming. That's the point. She smiled. That's what makes it worth doing. They danced until their feet hurt, talked to critics and collectors and other artists who were building their own impossible paths, drank champagne and ate tiny expensive food, and watched the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. At 2 a.m., exhausted and happy and ready for quiet, they left together, walked out into January cold that bit through fancy clothes, hailed a car that would take them to Dominic's penthouse where they'd sleep tangled together and wake up to coffee and possibility. In the car, Lena's head on Dominic's shoulder, she said, "Thank you." For what? For seeing me, for catching me, for letting me go and then being there when I came back. She paused. For doing the work to be someone I could come back to. Thank you for being brave enough to try, for pushing me to be better, for making art that changes how I see everything. They rode through the city in comfortable silence, past buildings and bridges and all the impossible complexity of 8 million lives, past the life Lena had lived before, the struggling, the hunger, the desperate scramble for visibility, into the life she was living now, seen and successful and still becoming. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no perfect ending, just two complicated people choosing each other despite the complications. Just an artist who'd learned to ask for help without losing herself. Just a man who'd learned that loving someone meant trusting them to succeed or fail on their own terms. Just Lena Virelli, standing at the beginning of everything she'd ever wanted, finally ready to claim it. The car pulled up to the tower. They rode the elevator to the 58th floor, walked into the apartment where breathing rooms still hung, where Lena's painting of a drowning woman reminded them both of where they'd started. Dominic kissed her at the threshold. Welcome home. This isn't my home. My home is in Bushwick. Then welcome to wherever we are when we're together. Lena kissed him back. That works? They went inside, into warmth and safety and the complicated, beautiful mess of building a life together, into the future that was waiting, full of paintings unmade and fights unhad and choices unchosen, into the work of loving each other despite everything, because of everything. And for the first time in her life, Lena Virelli wasn't falling. She was standing, reaching, choosing, and that was everything. But the end? Spring came to New York the way it always did, grudgingly, in fits and starts, the city thawing slowly from winter's grip. Lena painted through it, made new work for the LA gallery, for collectors who'd started seeking her out, for herself because the making was the point. Dominic bought a building in the Lower East Side and kept it affordable housing, funded scholarships for art students, did the work of atoning not through grand gestures but through consistent choice. Lena watched him become the man he'd always wanted to be, the one his mother would be proud of. They fought sometimes, about money, about boundaries, about whose turn it was to compromise. But they fought fair, with honesty, with the understanding that loving someone meant seeing all of them, the beautiful and the broken, and choosing them anyway. Maya got engaged to the curator. Lena was maid of honor. Dominic caught the garter and made a joke about it being a sign. Lena told him to slow his roll. He laughed and kissed her and didn't bring it up again. 6 months after the Whitney acquisition, Lena had a solo show in Los Angeles. Sold out opening night. Critics calling her one of the most important voices of her generation. She called Dominic from the hotel room afterward, high on success and champagne. "I did it," she said, "without you there. Without anyone questioning whether it was real. I never doubted it would be real. I know, but I needed to prove it to myself. And now? Now I know. The work stands, I stand, everything else is just noise." A year later, Dominic proposed, not at a fancy restaurant or public event, just in the Tribeca loft on a random Tuesday while Lena was covered in paint and cursing because a piece wasn't working. He got down on one knee in front of an unfinished canvas and asked if she wanted to keep doing this forever. Lena said yes, then made him wait 6 months to actually plan the wedding because she had paintings to finish. They married small. City Hall with Maya and Dominic's business partner as witnesses. Dinner at the Italian place in the village where they'd had their first real conversation. No press, no spectacle, just two people making promises they intended to keep. The art world moved on to newer scandals. Lena kept working, kept making pieces that interrogated power and displacement and the cost of survival, kept pushing herself, kept growing. Some things stayed complicated. The question of whether she'd have made it without Dominic's initial intervention was one she'd never fully answer, but she'd made peace with not knowing, with accepting that life was messy and help wasn't failure, and sometimes the story had multiple truths at once. What mattered was the work. What mattered was she kept making it, kept saying what needed to be said, kept being brave enough to be visible, even when visibility meant vulnerability. And when Lena Virelli stood in front of a canvas now, older, steadier, with a ring on her finger and scars on her heart, and a career she'd built painting by painting, she wasn't the starving artist who'd collapsed in a ballroom anymore. She was the woman who'd gotten back up, the woman who'd fought for her place, the woman who'd learned that falling wasn't the end of the story, just the beginning.